Morning, Chase. Morning, Tipper. What you got for today? Well, the usual boring stuff for you, except the first story, which might actually be of some interest for Clive. How so? I'll let Chase read it for you. Thanks, Tipper. No problem. Have a good one. You too. What does it say? Oh, well, how about that? What? The Sodor Archive Association has just discovered several reports from the Sodor and Mainland Railway. They were found in the basement of the house of a former board member. The newly discovered reports are of particular interest to the people who've studied it, as it tells a slightly different story than what's already been told. It might break soon. Probably inevitable. But that's bad, since it might be misinterpreted. Well, I never. Hello, Clive. Oh, hello, Brian. Well, what a lovely surprise. You still live on Sodor? Well, I didn't see any reason to move away from it, so I stayed. Fair enough. So, what did you do after we closed? Well, practically all of the railway staff was given the choice to be hired by the Northwestern Railway. Some chose to take it, while others chose to find other jobs. It was basically a 50-50. I joined the Northwestern and worked there until my retirement in 1928. I see. Serving a guard all your life. That's some love for the job. I felt right at home doing it. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. And it's a good thing you didn't do anything else. I have to admit, you were among the best guards the Sodor and Mainland Railway had. Well, thank you for that, Clive. That's very kind of you. Ah, yes, the Sodor and Mainland Railway. Such a turbulent time when I worked for it. Not one day went by without some confusion or trouble. Makes me wonder how it managed to stay afloat for as long as it did. We relied on government subsidies for the better part of 11 years, until they were all fired. It's sickening how much they got away with. Truly. But I kind of miss it. And by it I mean all the stuff that wasn't them. You know, the stations, the workmen, the locomotives especially. Yeah, we're ironically the only ones left on Sodor, despite the fact that we were the first. That is quite ironic. Do you know what happened to the others? Unfortunately, no. Well, we can only hope that they're somewhere good. Indeed. Anyway, I have to go now, Clive. Nice seeing you again. Hope to see you around. Likewise, Brian. Thanks for the talk. Well, that was nice. At least some good elements still remain. Oh, Stanley. I didn't see you. How long have you been there? About 7 minutes. Oh, so you heard? I heard again. I know you three are trying to hide something, but you keep talking about it. You've heard us talking before, 3 times, and I've become even more puzzled each time. This time especially, you've left me particularly confused and curious. A made-up story, turbulent times, no day without confusion or trouble, government subsidies, and those recently discovered reports. Nothing adds up to what you've been telling us, and I think it's about time that you let it all out. Clive, what's going on? You want to know everything? I bet the whole island wants to know everything. Well, I suppose it's pointless to keep it hidden for much longer. But we can't do it now. We don't have enough time. I've got half an hour. Like I said, we don't have enough time. If you're to be told everything, you'll have to hear it in detail. Meet me tonight at Kirkronan Harbor. I'll make sure to have Neil and Matthew there as well, for a more full-on experience. Very well. I'll see you then. Bother. I've dreaded this day coming. Me too. I really don't want to tell it. Well, it's better that we tell it than the newspapers. That's true, I guess. Don't want to have those reports misinterpreted. No, indeed. Evening, lads. What are you doing here? Well, the little bird told us that this evening included study time. But seriously, despite us having worked alongside you for the better part of 60 years, we collectively know very little about all the stuff that went down, given we only saw it from Grove and Skate. Fair enough. I suppose there's nothing wrong with that. I guess we just have to wait for Stanley and Lenny. You don't have to wait long. Right, we're here. Good. Well, I suppose we better get started from the beginning. We have a lot to get through, so I hope you're ready. Well, we have the whole night ahead of us. Tomorrow is supposed to be a quiet day. Very well. So, if we're to get off to a good start, we have to start at... Look, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at Croven's Gate.
Sorry, Renis, I know I'm not supposed to be here. There was a jam set of points further up the line, so I couldn't get to Croven's Gate until tomorrow. So I was told to spend the night here.
Well, if that's the case, then it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it, Luke. As long as you listen to management, then everything is alright.
They were the ones that told me to go here.
Then you do listen, which is good. One thing though, that means we're also trapped here until tomorrow. That's a fair point, Scalowy. I suppose Duncan and I here will have to take care of it. Ooh, Duncan will not like that. Definitely not. But it is what it is. I suppose you'll have to stay with us, Luke.
Alright.
Well, this is awkward timing.
What do you mean? What's going on?
Well, Luke, remember when I told you about the Sodor and Mainland Railway?
Yeah?
Well, Clive here, who is a former member of that railway, was just about to tell the story of it. I suppose you can listen along to it as well. No, that won't do. He's too young and inexperienced for that.
What? Did something bad happen? Renee has told me that if anybody says that, then that means that bad things happen.
Well, Luke, bad things did happen for us, but I see it rather as a learning opportunity. I think it'll be of great use for Luke. Are you sure about that, Clive? Well, if he ever does get saddened or affected by it in any way, he has some great mentors to talk to. Very well. Luke, you can listen along if you want.
Cool. Story time.
However, you start, Clive. I start. You were the first one on the railway, so you have the best knowledge. Yeah, but it was only by a month. Still, fine. If you don't want to do it, I'll do it. Thank you. Right, so as Neil said a bit ago, we'll start right at the beginning. We start in 1850. Up to this point, Sodor had been a quiet island. However, also by this point, the Industrial Revolution had taken full effect on the mainland, and to an extent, on Sodor as well. Several factories had sprouted up, with most being centered around the island's capital, which was Croven's Gate, the island's biggest port, which back then was Kirk Ronan. The latter especially saw lots of development, and by 1850 it had become the industrial heart of the island. While it wasn't much in comparison to like Portsmouth or Liverpool, it was still very impressive in comparison to the rest of the island. Kirk Ronan had grown in population as well, with most of the inhabitants working in one of the dozen factories that were active. And of course, given that it was the island's biggest port, it accounted for the vast majority of both goods and passenger traffic that came to and from the island. It was also home to the Kirk Ronan shipyard, which back then was the island's largest employer. The ships produced were known for being of high quality and for being built at a rapid pace. The ships built there were mostly for export, but the shipyard was of course the main supplier of ships to Sodor, especially for the Sodorian Navy, which was stationed at Kirk Ronan as well. Generally put, Kirk Ronan and the rest of Sodor had the essentials of the Industrial Revolution, except for one key element: railways. Despite the rapid growth that the island had seen during the 19th century, railways was a technology that they lacked in. This was generally because of the island's then Duke, Jacob IV. Jacob was a very conservative man and he had been very skeptical of the technology. He was in fact an anti-rail guy. He held strong in his opposition throughout his reign, which is why the island didn't have any railway by the early 1850s. However, he was also very, very unpopular for this, and for many other reasons. So unpopular in fact that he was assassinated in 1853. The only Sodorian Duke in history to have been assassinated, but safe to say his funeral was more of a celebration. Following Jacob's removal from the throne, many of Sodor's higher class saw an opportunity to finally give the island a railway, and several would start discussion of a potential route that could serve the island's industrial heart and the capital. It eventually accumulated in a group of Sodorian higher-ups coming together, calling themselves the Sodor Mainland Railway Group. Their main goal was to link the island to the mainland with a rail connection to Barrow. Their plans were discussed and tuned over several meetings, and by 1854 they were ready to present their proposal to the island's government. The proposal went well and gained a majorital vote from the government members. With the government's approval for the project, it was time to present it to the island's new Duke, Ethan VI. They had high hopes about the meeting since Ethan was very much the opposite of his father. The meeting happened on the 18th of September 1854. It took place at the house of Ronald Clover, who was the leader of the group. He was also the one who carried out the presentation. Well, Your Majesty, we're very honored that you took some time out to come by for this meeting. We're very much excited about what we want to present to you, since we feel that it can really help to revolutionize the island in both economy and general comfort for the public. I present to you the Sodor and Mainland Railway. Designed to establish a direct and efficient railway. Ronald outlined the general plan and benefits that a railway would provide for the island. First, it would allow for much greater transportation between Crowens Gate and Kirk Ronan. Second, it allowed for a more efficient expansion of the island's industrial scene, which could generate more jobs and thereby economic growth. And finally, the rail connection to the mainland, albeit projected to happen later on, would help the island ship their goods to the mainland faster and more efficiently. And safe to say, the Duke was very impressed. Well, Mr. Clover, I am truly impressed by the comprehensive and strategic approach you and your team have taken to the development of this project. The plan for the railway is both visionary and practical, holding great potential for the future of the island. The benefits you've outlined are compelling. A growth in the economy is always a potential that should be utilized. And having seen the success of railway transport elsewhere in the British Isles, I'm convinced that this project would be very beneficial to Sodor. And you seem to be the right people to lead the project. Your commitment to sustainability and forward thinking in regard to infrastructure is commendable. Well, I think that sums up my whole view on this project. With that said, you'll find my wholehearted approval for this project. I believe this initiative will bring our vision for progress, economic growth and enhanced connectivity to power. I believe it will be a catalyst for positive change and prosperity. And with those closing remarks, it was official. The Sodor Mainland Railway Company was born. And now it was time to set things in motion. Construction began immediately after, starting at Kirk Ronan. The port was expanded in anticipation to the increase of traffic. After which, on the port itself, the tracks were laid. Followed shortly with the work on the connection to Crowens Gate commencing. And it was shortly after the beginning of this undertaking that the railway's first motive power arrived, which, as you know, was us. I was the first to arrive, with Neil arriving 2 months later, with Matthew following another month after that. And we learned quickly that ambitions were high among the head of the railway. Right, now that you're most settled here, it's time to get to work. We have a rather tight and packed schedule to keep to, so you're expected to work with top efficiency and professionalism. Can I rely on that from you? Yes, sir.
Excellent. So, this is the plan. We have 3 ongoing construction sites at the moment that you 3 can work on. There's the construction of the line to Crowens Gate, the construction of the main Kirk Ronan station, which also includes finishing the harbour, and there's the construction of the main yard up at the industrial area. Ongoing as well is the construction of the station and main yard at Crowens Gate. But given that we aren't connected to the site at the moment, you're to focus on the construction sites here. Anyway, back to Kirk Ronan. Given that there are 3 sites, you're to be split among them. Do you have any that you particularly want to work on?
Well, I want to work on the station and harbour. I want to work on the extension to Crowens Gate. Great, I want to work on the main yard.
Well, that was very quick. But that's already a good start. I suppose that's how it's going to be then. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you 3 in action. So, are we ready?
Yes, sir. Wow, what do you think about this? Well, that's quite a nice surprise. I take it that these will be the railway's new passenger coaches? That is correct. They arrived this morning. We'll see when we get to use them. Yeah, that's a good thing too. Bit of practice is necessary. Indeed. First time on passenger trains. Very exciting. Exciting is not the word that I would use. Why not? I'm just not that fussed about pulling passenger trains. I'm scared I'll do it badly. I'd rather stick to goods trains.
Don't worry about that, Matthew. I won't be forcing you if you don't want to. For now though, I will be encouraging you to at least try it out. You'll get a lot of time to practice, as the others also will. But if you still decide against pulling passenger trains, that's perfectly fine. I'll just shift the workload so you can focus more on goods trains.
Very well, sir. I'll give it a try then. Thank you.
No worries, Matthew. If we're to have a good start to operations, we're to make sure that we're all content with the workload. I'm yet to plan any trial dates, given that I have to work around the construction trains, but I'd imagine that you'd begin trials within a week or two.
That sounds good, sir. Well, I guess we'll just have to see how it goes.
I'm sure it'll be alright, Matthew. At least you got workers on your train today. They're used to rough travel, especially in those boxes they've been transported in.
Fair enough, I suppose. An audience with low standards. Kinda sad they've had to be carried around in those for so long. Hopefully they'll be replaced soon.
Trust me, they are screaming at management to have them replaced.
But the prayers of workers are usually never heard.
Too true, Matthew. Way too true.
Well, Matthew, the line up ahead is clear. You may proceed. Gotta wait for the guard to give me the signal, Clive. I know, I'm only testing you. Thanks, I guess. Well, this is quite pretty. I've just realized I've never really been beyond Kirk Ronan as of now. I've only really worked at the yard and the harbor.
That's true, yeah. Well, I suppose this trip will also give you a chance to see the line you'll be working on moving forward.
I suppose so. Hello, Matthew. How was that? It was okay. At least the route was pretty. The route is very pretty indeed. And now you're at the capital. I guess so. Crovin's Gate itself. The heart of the island. Indeed. So, have you made your mind up about passenger trains? Yeah, I'm not really interested. Oh, I see. Fair enough then. That's your choice. Do you want me to take your train back to Kirkronan? That would be very nice of you. Then I'll get ready. Well, you three, your work these past few years has been phenomenal. Absolutely stellar. And it's because of this that we're now able to open something truly groundbreaking for the island. A brand spanking new railway, connecting the capital with the island's biggest harbor. This is something truly special, and it couldn't have been possible without your contribution. Well, you've been an excellent boss so far, Ronald. A gift to work for. You lot are too kind. But are you ready for the big day tomorrow, Clive? You got the special one after all. I guess you could call it that. Don't talk about it like that, Clive. It's the opening train. That's something quite special. You should be very proud of that. I am. I very much am. I'm excited. I can't wait. And I can't wait to see you three flourish. And Matthew, I understand your decision against pulling passenger trains, something that I have the greatest respect for. And not to worry, I believe that you'll be able to handle the goods work well. I'll try my best, sir. That's great to hear. Now we better get some rest. We've got a big day tomorrow. Good night, engines. Good night. Well done, Clive. That was marvelous. Right on time and without trouble. I tried my best, sir. And I urge you to continue with it. There's a lot of work ahead. But I assure you, I'll try to make it match with your capabilities. And this run alone has given me a great idea about what that is. And it is superb. Thank you, sir. I'm looking forward to starting the regular services. Excellent. I suggest you go rest for a bit now. Gotta be ready for the return journey. Is it going to be as crowded as this one? Actually, a bit more. I would suggest adding another coach to the rig. Well, this'll be a long day. But I take your point, sir. I'll go rest for a bit. Look at you! The railway's first official goods train. Well done, Matthew. Thank you, Clive. Wow, it's crowded back there. Along the rest of the line in general. Indeed, at least a few thousand people on the stations alone. Yeah, that would make sense. I'm surprised I got as big of a cheer as I got when I passed. I think people will give any train a proper welcome, considering the role we'll be playing. Fair point. Plus, they're probably still adjusting to the concept of train travel. Makes sense. So, based on your first train, do you think you can manage the workload? Well, these first 2 trains are quite heavy. But then again, that's the result of today's importance. I can imagine they'll shrink during regular service. So far, I think we'll be alright. What about you? How does it seem with the goods work? It seems to be okay. On average, they'll probably be heavier than your trains, but at least they won't be running as often. True. I suppose we'll just have to see how it plays out. Indeed. I should probably get going now. Gotta do that return run to Kirk Ronan. See you later, Matthew. Later, Clive. Let's get this railway going. Hear, hear.
Well, you three, that officially concludes the first 2 weeks of service. And I'm already very, very proud of you all. You've all showed serious levels of professionalism and dedication to the operations of the services, which I am very grateful for. How do you feel?
Well, I appreciate your excitement, sir, but I think there's something we need to break to you.
Oh? What's that?
There's too much work. We're already finding it tedious to properly keep up with the schedules due to the demand of services. We're trying our best to keep the time, but it's taking quite a toll. We are very much doubting how long we can keep this going.
Well, that is something else, I guess.
Sorry to break it to you like this, sir. We really don't want to let you down.
It's alright, Clive. Good thing is, I noticed it too. So, I've already sent an order for 2 more engines to join us. And these 2 will be a little bit more equipped for the work we'll be carrying out. One will be for the bigger passenger trains, and one will be for the bigger goods trains.
Phew, that's a relief, sir. Thank you so much. When will they be arriving?
About 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, I'll try to split the work as evenly as possible so none of you will feel overworked. At least to a certain degree. It'll be the best I can do.
It'll be enough for the time, sir. We greatly appreciate your care towards us. We'll try best to make up for it. Thank you. We'll just have to see what happens next. Hello, Neil. Hello, Matthew. Good run there? Pretty standard. Nothing major happened. Just the usual run. Well, I suppose there's nothing wrong with that. No, indeed. I don't want anything unusual to happen. Especially so early on. Let's just hope we can continue sufficiently until the new engines arrive. Indeed. And on that note, I should get ready for the next passenger train. Don't want that to be late. Ah, bother. Neil, are you alright? More annoyed than hurt. Why the blooming hell was the point set against me? I don't know, Neil. But never mind that. Now you can't pull your train. Botheration. Matthew? As much as I don't want to ask you this, out of respect, can you cover my train to Crowan's Gate? I suppose there's no other option. No, indeed. Fine, I'll give it a shot. Against my will. Can't really do anything else. I know. Just putting it out there. Understandable. Before you go though, can you at least bring a crane? Oh, of course. I'll get to it right away. I promised I wouldn't do this for a while, but I guess we can ignore that for now. Well, he should be here within a few minutes. Oh, hello Matthew. Well, this is a surprise. Wasn't Neil supposed to pull this one? He was, but he derailed just outside the sheds at Ronan, so he was unavailable to take the train. So you took it. Didn't really have any other option. I see. Well, I guess what you said about passenger trains... Yeah, I know. I went against my own words. Indeed. But now the obvious question is, did you mind? I did in the beginning, but I have to admit, this run was much better than my first run. Really? Didn't feel much stress nor pressure with this run. A very different experience. And have you changed your mind because of it? Not enough for me to be able to pull them regularly. But enough for me to be more open towards it in the future, if the need arises. I see. But you are aware that you're going to have to take this train back to Ronan again? Yes, I'm aware of that. Very well. I suppose you can go to the sheds now and rest before that. There's nothing else you want me to do before that? Nothing outside your schedule. Or Neil's schedule in this case. Very well. Oh, and Matthew? Yeah? Thank you for covering. This is not a small achievement. You should be very proud of yourself. I certainly am. Thank you, sir. Well, how about that? Hello. I assume that you're the new ones.
That would be us, yes. I'm with.
And I'm Samson.
Clive is the name. Pleasure to meet you two. We've been looking very much forward to your arrival. We do need a lot of help if we are to manage without struggling. I heard one of you would be a main passenger engine and the other would be a main goods engine. I assume that you were the passenger engine.
Indeed. I have a bit of experience handling longer stopping passenger trains, so I'll hopefully be able to put in some good use.
That's a good start. We can only hope, I suppose. And what about you, Samson?
Well, I've been brought as the new main goods engine for this railway. I come from an industrial background, so while I may not have much experience with mainland goods work, I have worked with heavy goods in the past. So I'm not a complete stranger to the operations.
I think it'll be enough. Well, I imagine you'll have to talk to Mr. Clover if you're to get any further information. I don't exactly know where he is at the moment, but knowing the fact we've received more motive power, I can imagine he'll be here shortly.
Very well. Thanks for the information, Clive.
No problem. I'll have to get going now. But again, we're very happy for your presence here.
Thanks, Clive. See you later.
We were very busy right from the beginning. After Whiff and Samson arrived, we were able to deliver a tight and effective service that proved to be very efficient. And safe to say, the public's opinion was incredibly positive. Already, despite only being in operation for over a month, we were already seeing the goals of the projects coming to light. We had achieved a better connection between the capital and the port, and we were providing several advantages that boosted the industrial scene on the island. That's 2 of the 3 main goals of the railway already being achieved. That must be an incredible feeling, providing so much growth to the island. It was a wonderful experience. All we were missing was the final of those 3 goals, a connection to the mainland. Indeed. And after 5 years, the railway was already exceeding expectations in a lot of regards. We were carrying more passengers than expected, more goods than expected. Generally, we were a lot more influential than we anticipated. So much so that after those 5 years, plans were already being laid down for expansions. And in order to work towards the goal of a connection with the mainland and Sodor, the next approach that was decided was to extend the railway to Vickerstown. It was a unanimous decision amongst the railway's board. Shortly after that, we were briefed about the plan, much to our, well, a lack of immediate enthusiasm. You didn't support it? Not immediately. Mostly because, like I said, we were already rather busy, so we were slightly worried about more work being placed on us. Fortunately, it seems the board had anticipated our reception of the idea and had already arranged for more rolling stock to join the railway. However, unlike us, Whiff and Samson beforehand, these new locomotives were not to be imported from outside Sodor, but rather, they were to be designed and built here on Sodor.
Built on Sodor? I mean, I know the Crovan's Gate Works can do a lot, but back then, was it even equipped for that?
Well, when it first opened, it wasn't really that well equipped. It was just a single-track workshop, but it was steadily upgraded in the years following the grand opening, but even by 1863 it was still mostly equipped just for maintenance. However, overseeing much of the project was the railway's then chief architect, John Harvard Cherson, who also happened to be a very skilled engineer. He oversaw a massive upgrade of the works so it could accommodate the production of locomotives and rolling stock for the railway. It was the first major action that was taken before the actual extension work began. In the meantime, John had been designing a new class of locomotives for the railway. Production of these locomotives began immediately once the works were ready, and not too long after, the railway received its very first member, the so-called Southern Mainland Railway Class 1. How do you feel?
I feel great, like a brand new engine.
I mean, I hope so, since you are, well, a brand new engine.
I know, just amusing myself a bit. But to give an honest answer, I do feel great.
That's wonderful to hear. Your name was Roger, right?
Yes, that's me.
Neil's the name, and this is Whiff, another one of your colleague.
Well, I'll be looking forward to working with you lot.
We are too. An engine like you will be a godsend given how busy we're expecting to be.
I heard that. Hopefully, I can deliver on those expectations.
Yeah, hopefully indeed. It'll also be a good test of your performance, considering that we're looking to get 3 more engines like you.
Well, there's a lot of pressure on my wheels then.
Do you feel ready for trial runs?
Yeah, I do. And with any luck, they'll go good.
I'm sure they will. John is a good engineer. He's the one largely responsible for this whole setup. So, it should be fine.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Well, Roger, your trial runs have been very successful. You seem to be a steady performer, with quite a big punch. Very satisfactory. How do you feel about them? It felt very good. Glad I could get my wheels rolling. And like you said, very satisfactory. I think I'm ready to start properly working. That's good to hear, since you'll be rather busy for the next few months. As you may notice, we've already got lots of construction materials here at Crovan's Gate. Most of it is to be used for the extension. However, we'll also be carrying out an upgrade here at Crovan's Gate to expand the capacity. And that's largely a result of a third construction project that will happen. You may have noticed some construction work near the station already. Well, that's to be a new narrow gauge railway, which will supply the copper mine with a better form of transportation. You're also expected to contribute with that whenever you can. Wow, you weren't lying when you said busy. But I think I can manage. Excellent. As for the rest of you, you're expected to carry out your work as usual. Although I will be replacing Matthew on the morning goods train out of here with Whiff, since Farmer Allen will have an extra cattle train tomorrow. But otherwise, it'll be what you're used to. Is that understood?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Good night, engines.
Good night.
Oh dear, he's late. Hello, Clive. 16 minutes behind.
Hello, sir. I'm sorry about that.
What happened?
Well, we had a big supply of goods arrive just now, and it happened to clog up the yard a bit. So there I was running around trying to sort it all out. Matthew eventually joined, but it still took a lot longer than anticipated. We had to assemble the trucks into long lines, which on their own were rather hard to move. When I was finally able to leave the station, I was both exhausted and far behind schedule.
I see. I had thought about whether or not you three would be able to keep up with those increased demands. I was hoping it wouldn't be a big problem, but it seems I was mistaken. I'm not blaming you at all, Clive, nor am I blaming Matthew. I'm more blaming myself. Anyway, it's clear to me that some alterations are needed on the assignments. It would probably be best if Roger was assigned to help run the railway instead of the construction, with one of you taking over. Roger is a lot more powerful than you, so it would be optimal in the long run.
I agree, and I think services would improve as a result.
Indeed. I'll tinker with it and get back to you about it. For now, I suggest you go and rest for a bit.
That sounds good, sir. Thank you.
Hello, Roger. Hello, sir. How are things going? They are going good. We're making a lot of progress at the moment. Although it's a bit boring just sitting around here watching the men do their work. Well, in that case, I have some wonderful news for you. You do? Go on, sir. Right, so the other engines are currently struggling slightly with increasing loads as a result of changing times. And who knows how bad it's going to be once the extension is complete. So, to help control the situation, I've decided, with input from Clive, that you should swap places with him. So he'll be taking care of the construction work while you help run the railway. I feel you've proven yourself enough for me to believe that you're ready. Well, that's very good timing indeed, sir. I appreciate the trust you place in me, and if that's the best option for this railway, then I'll happily contribute. I will do my very best to help the others. Excellent. That's all I needed to hear. So, what work will I carry out? Well, it'll be a bit of everything. Your design is well optimized for both goods and passenger services, so it's only proper that you'll be used on both. I'll get back to you as soon as possible with more details about that. Sounds good, sir. Looking forward to it. Me too, Roger. Afternoon, Samson.
Afternoon, Whiff.
Well, you seem to be in a chipper mood.
I hope that was meant to be sarcastic.
It was. You don't look chipper at all.
And I'm not feeling it.
What's the matter?
It's that Roger chap.
Roger? What's he done?
He has taken my spotlight as this railway's most powerful locomotive. For the past years that I've been on this railway, I've always been the one to rely on for heavy work. I was the one who carried out the most important jobs that the railway had to offer. And now, just like that, I'm being outshone by this newfangled hodgepodge of a build. The first locomotive ever built on Sodor is more powerful than me, an engine who was built in England, the most advanced railway country in the world.
So let me get this straight. You're mad because of Roger's existence on this railway.
Exactly.
And you're not thankful for the fact that he's been a great boost to the railway's performance.
What has he provided anyway?
He has provided a significant increase in available power, something that you were running out of by the time you started to help us. You have to remember, Samson, you were struggling before he came to help. If it wasn't for his contributions, you would still be overburdened with work.
I would have managed, thank you very much.
No, Samson, I highly doubt that you would.
Could you give me some support? It feels as though I'm being held back by more than Roger now.
What the bloody hell was that?
You look bothered.
I think bewildered is a better word.
Why so?
I had a very peculiar conversation with Samson.
What happened?
Well, I think Samson is jealous.
Jealous?
Indeed. I didn't think he would be the type of engine to get jealous, but here we are.
I see. Wait, let me guess. Is he jealous about Roger?
Yeah, he is. You knew?
Well, I had a feeling. After working with Samson for 5 years, I've gotten to know him quite well. And I consider myself rather good at reading others when it comes to how they act and such. And based on past interactions with Samson, I've come to the conclusion that Samson has a lot of layers. And one thing I didn't put past me is that he is perhaps a little bit of a jealous type. He doesn't like to get outdone or outperformed, because he fears losing favorable reputation with people and engines alike. And with Roger now present, and others like him on the way, I suspected that he would have a reaction like that at some point.
Huh. I didn't know you had that kind of talent. Impressive for sure, but it doesn't really help the situation.
No indeed.
Is it possible for us to make him distance himself from that mindset?
I think so, but it's not going to be as easy as one would hope.
Why not?
Well, going back to him being layered, what I've also gathered is that he has a tendency to be rather stubborn, so having him distance himself from that will not be straightforward.
I see. Well, I guess we have to dwell on that.
Indeed.
But one thing we probably should focus on is making sure that Roger is at least aware about Samson's stance against him.
I think that's a smart move. I'm headed back to Creven's Gate now, so I'll hopefully be able to make some contact with him.
Sounds good.
Oh, great. You can't just start working on this railway and not expect me to see what you're really doing. What are you talking about, Samson? Don't act like you don't know Roger. You mosey on in here and act like you're the best of the bunch. The most powerful, the fastest, and the best overall. But don't feel like you've won so easily. You don't know what I can deliver when push comes to shove. It's way more than you can ever dream of pulling. Just you wait. The day will come.
What's his problem, man? He's been nagging me ever since I started working here.
He just feels eclipsed, like he's being overshadowed by you. In short, he's jealous.
So he was the prideful one before then?
Pretty much. He saw himself as the most important engine on the railway, which admittedly is not necessarily a wrong assumption, since he was the main heavy goods locomotive, which of course is the bread and butter work of this railway, but he really did let it go to a smoke box. And now, since he sees himself being challenged for that pride, he has gotten quite offended. I hope you're not taking it personally, it's out of your control after all.
I know, like, why the hell would that be my fault? I'm not responsible for my design nor my capabilities.
No, you're not, and I'm pretty sure that Samson would be able to figure that out if it wasn't for his jealousy.
It really doesn't take that much to figure out. But speaking of figuring it out, how do we solve this?
Well, considering how stubborn of an engine Samson can be, I doubt a simple conversation would be any good. So I do unfortunately think that it would have to be something a little bit bigger. Like, you might have to make quite an impression on him or something.
And how would I go about that?
Good question, to be honest. We have to let that sit for a bit.
Yeah, I can't think of anything either.
I suppose, in the meantime, that you keep a low profile around him. Don't want him to think you're rubbing it in.
I get that. I'll keep it in mind.
Good. Well, this is certainly nicer than the others on the line.
No question, this shed is top notch.
And one would doubt to think how things would have gone if it hadn't been for my contributions.
No, Samson, I don't think anyone doubts your contributions to this project.
They would be wrong to. I've worked my wheels and busted my boiler, all for the sake of the railway.
Just for the railway?
Of course, this is my home after all. I would be daft not to contribute where necessary.
But is that the only reason you've been busting your boiler as much as you have?
What do you mean?
Cause I have a feeling it's for a different reason.
Oh, it's you again. Mr. Look at me, I'm the best engine on the railway.
Samson, can you please just shut up?
I will not listen to orders from you, Roger. You expect to be considered the leader almost immediately? Well, think again, I'm not falling for that.
You wanna know something funny, Samson?
No, actually, I don't.
Well, you'll hear it anyway. I just came from Crivens Gates, and I was talking to one of the engineers who helped to build me, and he said something you might like to hear.
What?
In terms of tractive effort, you're more powerful than me.
I knew it! I knew I was still the superior engine. I told you as well. You thought you could get away with it, didn't you? I thought not. You better sit back and watch as the true leader takes charge of the heavy operations. In fact, watch me go right now.
All of a sudden, I'm starting to doubt on whether or not that was a smart thing to tell him.
Well, I think you resolved his jealous side. However, it appears that you've now revealed his boastful side.
and one is to wonder if that's more tolerable. If I'm honest, I doubt it. Great, have to deal with that now. Well, at least you tried. I guess so, but I don't know if I'd call it a success. Yeah, debatable. No, I'm willing to argue that was the right move. Why so? Well, I think the boastful nature of his newly equipped persona will go to his smoke box. Remember back in the day when the same thing happened? What did he do there?
He started to exceed his own capabilities.
Exactly. So maybe the same thing will happen again, which could hopefully highlight to him how important it is for him to receive help.
I suppose that's not a bad assumption, Whiff. Although it's probably something that Mr. Clover wouldn't support.
So, we don't tell him. We'll just let it happen. I'm sure he'll intervene anyway when the time's right.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. Samson, this is very stupid. This is way beyond what you usually handle, and definitely too much. Don't threat, Sean! I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm the most powerful engine on this railway, and this will be a light load at most. Nothing to worry about. Don't worry, I'm just finding my grip. Yes! There! I told you I could manage. This is not going to go well. Samson, what are you doing? I I can't do anymore. Oh, for crying out loud, I told you not to take this big of a load. Alright, I'll go get help, but I hope you've learned your lesson here.
What are you doing here, Samson?
I've taken this train which is beyond my capabilities, and thereby the railway's capabilities. It will not be possible to take it all the way in one piece. We'll have to do it in bits.
Do we though? I can just pull you the rest of the way.
Look, Roger, I appreciate your enthusiasm to prove yourself, but since I can't take this one, then obviously you can't either.
Well, if you give me a helping buffer, then we don't need to do it in bits. Samson, what were you thinking? This train is almost double what you usually take. I know I've asked you to take both trains, but I gave you time to do them separately, not all at once.
I'm sorry, sir. I was just testing how much I could handle.
No, Samson. That's not what it was about, was it? Samson?
I was trying not to get eclipsed by Roger. There comes an engine who challenges my authority as the most powerful and most useful engine on this railway. And I felt like I had to fight it back in order to keep my reputation. I know you expect a lot from me, sir, and I didn't want to seem weak in comparison. So I've been trying my hardest to prove to you that I'm still the superior engine, so you wouldn't think less of me.
But think less of you, Samson. Where did you get that idea from?
I guess I have it from my former controller. He would constantly make comparisons between his engines and ridicule the ones that performed the worst, or worse than they had in the past.
Samson, you've been working for me for over 5 years now. You know I'm not like that. Comparisons. Samson, I've actually mentioned this a few times now, but I think comparisons are among the most damaging things a railway can do. It might motivate, sure, but in the long run it'll only do damage. That's why I don't do comparisons. Look, all I care about is that you do your work well and within your own capabilities. And on that note, Samson, you should know that I don't think any less of you than of the others, not even Roger. You've all done exceptional work and I've tried my best to show my gratitude. I hope you realize, Samson, that I am very proud of you and what you've done for this railway. And as long as you do the work I ask you to do, I won't think any less of you. But moving forward, Samson, you gotta promise me that you stop this jealousy mindset immediately. It won't do you any good, neither will it do the railway any good.
I'll try my best, sir.
No, Samson, I need proper confirmation. Will you stop that mindset?
Yes, sir. I will.
Good. Thank you, Samson. Now, since both you and Roger have a bit of free time, perhaps you should go to the sheds and talk things through to make sure that there's no more tension between you.
Yes, sir. We'll get to it.
So, the two retired to the sheds and they sorted things out. Roger managed to prove that he wasn't any engine who thrived from being the best, and Samson did let go of his old mindset, eventually resulting in him developing a lot of respect and admiration towards Roger.
When all was settled, things immediately improved. The working efficiency of both surged, and the railway became more productive than ever. And, as we were finishing up the major construction projects of the whole extension, the remaining members of the new locomotives were completed. Ragnar was first, who was then followed by Ragnar, and finally Reed. These 4 engines allowed us to employ an unprecedented level of productivity, which saw the railway become more busy than ever. Reed, the final member, managed to be completed just in time for the opening celebration of the new extension in 1867, which saw a fantastic lineup of all 4 engines, showing the capabilities of Gate Works, which eventually began fulfilling orders from outside Sodor. Safe to say, we were very busy all of a sudden, but thanks to our latest additions, we were more than equipped to handle them. Eventually, the whole mainline was double-tracked, so we could accommodate for the increased levels of traffic. Things were looking good, and we would continue this prosperous running for another 10 years before we would see ourselves working on yet another expansion project. So, the year is 1877, and by that point we'd been running with utmost efficiency for over 10 years. They had been discussing ways to expand the railway even further without causing too much trouble nor controversy. They still didn't feel quite ready for an extension to the mainland, partly because it was still very risky and expensive, and also because the ferry services at Vicarstown and Kirkronan were providing an acceptable connection to the mainland anyway. So, they had many other ideas in the works for possible expansions. However, the one, or 2 they actually did end up going with were rather obscure at first. A branch to Great Watton and a branch to Norramby.
Why was that obscure?
Because both towns weren't really considered important connections in the beginning, but further development and investment proved otherwise. Norramby had become a pretty significant hub for a lot of fishing vessels, and it was providing a fairly high amount of goods from the sea, so the railway wanted to capitalize on that. But it was the line to Great Watton that was the more prominent one. Great Watton back then was an okay populated part of the island, but not necessarily significant. One thing it was though was heavily industrial, like a seriously prominent part of the island's industrial scene, despite its lack of a rail connection. The local council wanted a connection, but they wanted to utilize the opportunity for something grander. So, during the early 1870s, they would invest heavily in the area's tourism sector, with many new spas, luxury hotels, and other enticing facilities. Given the nice and lush nature of the area, was seen as an obvious move. With all this new tourism expected, it was quickly determined that the existing horse and cart services weren't ideal. So, the Sodor Mainland Railway agreed to have a line built to Great Watton to help with the tourism. It was originally proposed to be a tramway, but it was later rebranded as a proper branch line once another form of income was discovered. This was some form of coal deposits, which were discovered not too far from the town itself. As a result, 2 new mines were proposed. 1 coal mine and 1 regular stone quarry. The result of that, however, was that branching the line as a tramway wouldn't work, so it became a branch line like the one to Norramby. We would likewise agree to run the lines to each mine in order for them to be served properly. Eventually, in 1875, the entire project was greenlit and construction began immediately. Right before that, however, 2 engines were required to help with the construction work. 2 engines who would eventually also run the service afterwards. Well, if I ever thought we'd see each other again. Hello, Kenneth. What a pleasant surprise. Hello, Clive. Yeah, it's been a while now. How have you been? I've been well. We've been doing lots of work here. This railway has already grown much more than anticipated. Something that you're now to help with. It would seem so. And not alone, I see. Who's your friend? My name is Maximilian, but I prefer to go by Maxi. Pleasure to meet you, Maxi. I imagine that you two have worked together. We have indeed. We both worked in the industrial sector. Didn't really have a singular place we could call home. We moved around from place to place. Last working in a stone quarry. But it seems we've now found a proper residence here, now set to do a little more than industrial work. Well, hopefully you'll feel right at home. Do keep in mind, however, that you are likely going to do industrial work anyway. Speaking of which, I have to ask you, Kenneth, what's with the accessories? Well, when we were first sourced for this railway, it was still to be built as a tramway, so I received some appropriate modifications on site at our former residence. However, when we received the news there was going to be more than that, they were basically complete. So they finished me up and now I might look a bit out of place. I think you'll be fine. Plus people might be very used to seeing me, Neil and Matthew. So perhaps they need to see a box tank with some more character to them. I guess that's one way to look at it. I'm sure you'll be fine. But in any case, I was told to bring you two to Crovan's Gate. I have a goods train headed back there, so I imagine you were to tag along. Sure thing. Excellent.
Hello, you two.
Pleasure to finally meet you. My name's Mr. Clover, the controller of this railway.
Hello, sir. I'm Kenneth.
And I'm Maximilian. Or Maxi, whichever you prefer.
We've heard a bit about you already. Clive has had a bit of an open mouth.
Is that so? Well, hopefully he didn't say anything negative about me.
Not at all, sir. Quite the opposite, actually. A firm but fair man when it comes to work. And a humble, kind man when it's not about work.
Well, I suppose I shouldn't be the one to confirm nor deny that. But, with that said, we have to discuss your future here.
Of course, sir. We're all ears.
Great. So, I imagine you're already aware of what you're going to be doing here. You're going to help with the construction of 2 new branch lines for this railway. One to Great Watton and one to Norramby. Now the plan is you're each to be assigned to a separate one, so that work on both can commence at the same time. When the branches are finished, you're of course expected to run them. But not alone. Our workshop is currently working on 2 new locomotives who will be joining you for the branch's operations. We're expecting them to be busy after all. Now, whichever one of you helps with the Norramby branch, you'll also be helping with some expansion work here at Crowman's Gate. As you can see, we've actually already started working on that. A lesser important priority perhaps, but a necessary one nonetheless. Right, with that said, I believe you're both caught up. All I expect from you is that you carry out your work to your best abilities, without overdoing it or exceeding your limits. We've already been through that, so we don't want to repeat. That is duly noted, sir. We promise to deliver a satisfactory and efficient work ethic. Excellent. I'll leave you to prepare for tomorrow. You're both expected to be very busy.
Will do, sir.
What's the matter, Kenneth?
I don't know. It's just that this entire setup seems a bit over the top for a singular town. I know they expect a lot of tourists and all, but then again, it is still quite a bit away from any other major settlement. Also, the industrial atmosphere, not just here, but also with the presence of the mines, it might draw some people away from it.
I guess I can see your point. It is a large investment and an expectation, but as Mr. Clover recently said to me, one has to take chances in order to succeed.
Very true. And if the tourist thing proved to be a bit of a letdown, then at least the mines and industrial sectors can cover for that. Still, considering how much money has been invested in the tourism, it would be a real shame if it all proves to be a bit of a waste.
It would, but for now we can only hope for the best.
You look deterred, Kenneth. Is there something wrong? I'm more just a bit cautious and concerned about this entire project. Well, the Norramby branch a perfectly fine addition. It's more about the Great Watton line. I just don't think the railway nor the Great Watton Council is taking the right approach to the situation. What do you mean? Well, be honest with me, Neil. When you think of Great Watton, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Industry? Exactly. It's way too gritty and grimy for any major tourism effort. Like, the vibe will be totally off for any adventure-seeking tourists. Also, it smells. It smells industrial. Fair point, I suppose. But we can't really be sure until the line actually opens for operation. I know. I'm not necessarily against the project in that regard. Just cautious. Well, if anything, perhaps your presence will bring some more tourists. Why is that? I don't know. The tram look, I guess. Oh, shut up. Afternoon, Kenneth. Well, at least someone's cheerful. And who wouldn't be? The ever-kind sailors that roam Norramby, and the ever-productive fishing industry, which is destined to serve the railway greatly. Honestly, they should have made Norramby the tourism center, not Great Watton. Why? It's just more fitting. Great Watton is not really a tourist center at heart. Well, hopefully we'll be proven wrong when the time comes. Indeed. If I were you, Kenneth, I'd stop worrying about it. If you continue to, then something will go wrong. For now, you should focus on actually getting the bridge completed on time. Very well. But in that case, can I swap with you, Maxie? I need some fresh air after working there for so long. Of course. A bit of change won't hurt anyone. And if you feel as though you need it, then I'm more than happy to help. Thanks, Maxie. But don't feel too generous. You might soon need it as well. Nah, I'm sure I'll be fine. This is very exciting. The extra help will be a blessing. No question. I'm already feeling the toll despite only doing construction work, so it'll be nice with some extra power. And if the design proves to be successful, then perhaps they can get some more of them for the main line. Why is that? You feeling overworked? Maybe not overworked, but more outmatched. You have to remember, over the past 25 or so years I've been working here, the trains have gotten increasingly longer and heavier. But in that same time frame, I've neither gotten bigger nor more powerful to cope with them. I guess I'm just falling behind. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, in that case, perhaps Mr. Clover can work out something with the newer rolling stock. Hopefully so. Hello there. Hello. My new colleagues, I imagine. Yep. Welcome to the fresh air. What's your name? My name is Niall. What's yours? Mine's Neil, and this is Kenneth and Maximilian, who'll be your primary working partners moving forward. It's a pleasure to meet you, Niall. Looking forward to working with you. And hopefully also your sibling. Weren't there supposed to be two of you? Yeah, there is two. He's still in the works. I guess he's just trying to make a grand entrance or something. Well, that's a mood change if I've seen one. Is there something wrong with your sibling? Well, to be honest, I have no idea. I've gotten to know him for the past 3 or 4 days, and let me tell you, it has been a wild few days talking to him. Why? Well, see for yourself. Good morning, my name is Norris. I was finished 3 days ago. I've been assigned to the Great Watton development. They say it'll be transformative. Yes, that's the hope certainly. I'm Neil. This here's Kenneth and Maximilian, who'll be your colleagues on the project. Welcome to the railway, Norris. Thank you, Neil. You, Kenneth. Yeah? You have doubts about the Great Watton line, don't you? Pardon? I can sense it. You looked at me just now the way one looks at a painting that's been hung upside down. Like something's off, but you're not sure what. Well, that's one way to start a conversation. Well, Norris, I wouldn't say it like that. I've just got concerns. Spa towns don't usually thrive under the shadow of coal smoke. That's all, really. No, they don't. And yet the rails are still being laid. Isn't that strange? The line will change the town. Not in the way they think, but it will still change. And I'm glad to be a part of it. Well, I suppose that's optimism in its own strange way. Something tells me this one's going to take some getting used to. No kidding. Are you done, Norris? I would say so. After all, the conversation has concluded. So I suppose we move on. Yeah, I'd say so too. Afternoon, you two. Afternoon, Mr. Clover. A pleasure to see you not in a work setting. Likewise, it's good to see you out on the rails finally. Ready for work, I hope? Absolutely, sir.
Mr. Clover, you walk as though your shoes remember every stone. Yes, Norris, I do tend to know where I'm going.
Norris has a way with words. Bit poetic, I think.
So I've heard. They tell me you're efficient, precise, and, well, prone to making statements that raise an eyebrow. That would be an accurate summary, sir. I do not lie. I do not intend to. But the truth does unsettle people. And what truth would you have me hear then? About the project you've been assigned to? You'll complete your branch lines. The rails will be strong. The timetables will hold. But the heart of the vision will erode. Not from sabotage, but from honesty.
He means it might not be the holiday paradise that people are dreaming of. But there's still good work to be done. Honest work.
You believe in the vision, Niall?
Absolutely, sir. It may not be picture perfect, but it'll give people places to go. Jobs, trades, life. That counts for something, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And you, Norris, you see shadows in daylight. Not something I necessarily want amongst my roster. Why should I trust you to represent this railway? Because shadows require light, sir. And I will always tell you when it dims. I've met boastful engines, sloppy engines, even cowardly ones. You, Norris, are none of those. But as of right now, I don't fully trust you. Not yet. I would not trust me either, sir. Not yet. Well, look at that. Honesty all around. But for now, I have no choice but to trust you. Just do your jobs. Both of you. The lines won't construct themselves. But if any of you act up in any shape or form, I will have to give myself another choice.
I like him. No nonsense, no babble. You should show him some more respect.
He walks with purpose, but still looks over his shoulder. Are you trying to creep everyone out? Not intentionally. It's just easier to see things when you're not trying to like them.
Ugh, jeez, what's wrong with you, Norris?
I'll tell you what's wrong with me, Niall. Absolutely nothing. Good evening, engines.
Good evening, sir.
As you know, we're just about ready to open both branch lines to a full operational status. All that thanks to the splendid work effort you've put in. I must say I am very satisfied with all the work you've done, and the result is something you should all be very proud of. And if the estimates are to go by, we're looking at both branch lines becoming very busy, so I hope you're prepared for that.
More than ready, sir. Can't wait to receive some proper work for my wheels. We won't let you down, sir.
I'm ready for the inevitable, but it will begin beautifully.
Well, if the inevitable is you working very hard, then I suppose that's something.
Well, it wasn't really that, sir.
But that's what we'll take it as. Now, since there's almost certainly going to be much more traffic on the Great Watton branch, I'll be assigning you, Niall and Norris, to handle the work there, while you, Kenneth and Maxie, will handle the Norramby branch. That's not necessarily final, but it's what we'll start with. We'll have 2 opening ceremonies, here and at Crovan's Gate. We do want both lines to start operating on the same day, so that's how it's going to be. Opening day will be 6 days from now, so you'll have some time to prepare. Are you ready, lads?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Excellent. Good night, engines.
Well, that's a relief. Feel like my pipes are chock full of coal dust and smog, so it'll be nice to get some fresh air by the sea. I envy you a little.
but I think I can manage despite the lack of clean air. Hopefully though, it won't deter the travelers to that region. And that would be a real shame. So much investment for so little interest.
What? Aren't you going to say anything?
Well, I don't feel it appropriate to repeat what I've already said. But in fairness, I'm sure there'll be lots of interest in the area for a short while. But eventually, the workers will smile more than the tourists. They'll flock to the city with hopes and excitement, but they'll leave with dust in their boots and sadness in...
Norris?
Yeah?
Shut up!
Understood. Well, that was a delightful first day of work.
Absolutely. That was top notch. Way more passengers than I expected. And the fish trains were unprecedented. Certainly an opportunity well realized.
Indeed. And the ocean is beautiful, fresh and calming. A brilliant place to work.
Truly, a blessing to get away from Great Watton. Speaking of which, I wonder how it went for them today.
This place smells so grimy. Well, that's the nature of the town, isn't it? Yeah, I know. Industrial and all. But still, it's gonna take some getting used to. I'm used to it already. But I'm not sure the traveling public will get used to it.
Don't start with that just yet.
You can't deny the amount of people present for the ceremony. There were way more people than anticipated, and it seems they enjoyed the trip, and that they'll enjoy their stay. I'll call it a very successful first day of operations. Opening day successful? Sure, I can agree with that. But you must remember, Niall, what seems isn't necessarily what is. Give it a week or two, and people will likely have different opinions. I don't think so. You saw how happy and excited people were? They smiled only for the portraits.
Could you at least have a little bit of optimism?
I carry and show some optimism, just not the kind you want. No, indeed. And I, and basically everyone else you interact with, would like you to consider scaling that back. If we're to continue the momentum we've built here, we need to be proper optimistic and enthusiastic. You, my dear brother, are neither of that. I think I'll just stay quiet then. I do understand your concerns regarding my views and how I express them, but I simply can't get myself to move away from that. It is my opinion after all. Plus, if my assumptions turn out to be true, then I won't look like a fool for believing too much in the project. You are something else. But if that's really the only thing you can get yourself to do, then whatever. At least it's something. But will you at least help me get the work done properly? Of course, brother. That is my job after all. Thank you.
Oh dear, it's not looking good, for a multitude of reasons. Afternoon, Neil.
Afternoon, Niall.
Are you tired?
Exhausted is the word. I think me, Clive and Matthew are getting too old for this mainline running.
Why's that?
It's just way too much for our old design. This train, for instance, took me a bit of time to get moving from Ballyhoo, and it's not even fully loaded.
Well, I guess our trains at least have something in common.
What do you mean?
What you're seeing right here is a busy passenger train.
Really? That's busy for you?
Yep, unfortunately. As much as I hate to admit this, Norris doesn't seem to be half wrong with his assumptions. We're really struggling to fill our passenger trains with any meaningful numbers, and the ones we do get are mostly workers living at Great Watton. It's like 60 or 70% or something. In turn, that has caused the whole tourism stick with Great Watton to be questioned. The train journey is unappealing, the whole town as well is also unappealing, and the surrounding nature, while appealing in comparison, is apparently not worth traveling to Great Watton for. What's even worse is that the hotels and spas at Great Watton are seeing enormous competition from the ones along the Skarloey Railway, and they're badly losing to those. I know the Skarloey is a subsidiary of us, so we're not necessarily losing from this, but still, it's not an ideal situation.
Wow, that's absolutely terrible. And such a contrast to the Norramby branch.
What's going on down there?
Well, the passenger trains are flourishing. They're packed when they reach Crovan's Gate and packed when they leave again. The fishing industry is also providing a lot, but it seems the passenger trains are the more prominent service.
That is a contrast, cause it's the exact opposite here. I tell you, the amount of mineral trains we handle is absurd. It's so far beyond the expectations, which is great of course, since it's a great boost to the railway's economy, but it also just adds to the grimy and industrial atmosphere surrounding Great Watton, which of course only detracts travelers even further.
That's such a shame, both for the vision, but also for you.
You're said to be quite powerful for your size, and well optimized for passenger operations,
but those skills are not being realized in any meaningful way.
Trust me, I'm longing for any real challenge when it comes to railway operation. And while he won't say it, that's actually one of very few things that me and Norris actually agree on.
Well, how about that? But maybe there is something more to it. Me, for instance, I'm longing for the days where I could easily keep up with the loads being put upon us. But this is so far from that.
Wanna swap?
Yes, I really want to swap. Of course, we'll need Mr. Clover's approval for that, but I think he'll go along with it.
Oh, I'm sure of that. It'll boost the performance of the main line, you'll still get a chance of delivering a satisfactory performance within your capabilities, and also, it'll get Norris away from Great Watton.
What does that mean?
Well, if the industrial setting of Great Watton wasn't detracting enough, the presence alone of him, even when he's not saying anything, is seriously unsettling some people, even regulars.
Yeah, that's not good if you want to have a chance.
Exactly, he needs to get away from there as fast as possible. And also, if you're brought on, perhaps you can attract some more people due to your unique design.
Admittedly, it's actually a pretty valid idea. One I even think Mr. Clover would agree with.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I suppose the primary focus for now is to get it relayed to him as fast as possible. Things need to change. Now.
Right, listen up everyone. We have a few things to talk about. So, let's start with the obvious. Yes, the Great Watton branch is not performing how we hoped. Now I want to quickly stress that we are thankfully still making a profit from it. Problem is, most of the income is a result of the mining traffic, not the passenger traffic, which we were hoping would be significantly more than what it currently is.
Now it should go without saying that none of you are at fault. You've all been doing the work that was expected, and I'm very satisfied with that. The real kicker here is the Great Watton Council, who are too stuck up their own asses to realize what the problem is.
Are they blaming us for the lack of passengers?
You can say that. As of right now, we're actually in a legal battle with them, since they're claiming we're not fulfilling our part of the contract, which was to bring passengers and tourists to the town. That's a load of rubbish, which is exactly what I've been telling them. We've been doing our part. We're bringing in passengers. Problem is, there's just not many passengers to bring in. Are they blaming Norris? Well, partly blaming him. Now, I can understand that somewhat. No offense, Norris. None taken. But it is a slight overreaction from them. Slight? Major? Let's go with that. Whatever. The point is, things are not going as well as we had hoped. So, in order to potentially turn our fortunes, both with the passenger traffic and this pointless legal battle, we'll be making a few changes. The most important one of which is that Norris and Niall are to swap with Neil, Clive and Matthew, who will be running the Great Watton branch moving forward. The outcome we're hoping for is what you already know. But again, no offense Norris, you'll be a much better fit for the mainline, since it'll match your capabilities better, and potentially help the mood surrounding Great Watton. Understood, sir. The changes will take effect in 3 days. Hopefully, we'll be able to see some better fortunes emerge soon. Here's hoping. And with that said, good night, engines.
So, we were all transferred to the Great Watton branch, and thankfully it seemed to help a lot. The services were well within our limits, and we were able to carry out our work with sufficient performance. And when all was said and done, the transfer of Norris and our somewhat unique design did actually help the tourist numbers slightly, but it was still way below what was expected. Eventually, about half of Great Watton's new tourist facilities would close due to a lack of interest in traffic. The local council pushed hard on the railway, but Mr. Clover managed to win the case, and we were spared of any major repercussions. With everything now a bit calmer, we could focus on making the best with what we had. The Norramby branch, on the contrast, was thriving. The fishing loads were big, and the passenger trains were packed. It became what we'd hoped the Great Watton branch would be. But, when considering everything, the railway was still doing great, and we were now hoping that our next endeavours would provide some better fortunes for the railway. Unfortunately, what we hadn't realised then was that the railway had already peaked. The misfortunes we'd had with the Great Watton branch would only prove to be the tip of what was to come. We were about to enter the dark times.
The dark times?
All the momentum we'd been building, all the success we'd experienced, that, as it would turn out, would be when we are at our best in all regards. But the opening of the East Satrian branches would prove to be the beginning of the end of our operations. What happened afterwards is what we haven't really told anyone, what we've kept hidden for all these years.
Are you okay with talking about it?
I don't know, I guess not, but it has to be done. Maybe saying that the branches were the beginning of the end is a bit far-fetched, cause overall they did provide to the railway in terms of goods and mineral trains. The event that would really start the downturn would happen about 5 months after the opening of the branches. It had been an enormously stressful year for the railway. The construction of the branches, the mediocre reception of the Great Watton passenger services, and the legal case with the Great Watton Council. It had been really tough, and none were feeling it more than Mr. Clover. He handled most of that load, and it was proving to be really degrading to his health. All of that, while suffering from other problems privately, it all eventually caught up with him.
Well, that was nice, wasn't it, dear?
Yeah, it was lovely.
What's wrong?
I'm not feeling good, Clara. I have a severe headache.
You're overworked, darling. They weren't kind to you at all. But we're done with that now. Now it's time to take it a bit easier.
Truly, I'm looking forward to that.
Me too. Come on, let's get you home to bed. You deserve some rest.
Morning, engines.
Morning, Julian. What's going on? I didn't know you were coming today.
Well, I didn't know that either, but it is unfortunately a result of something that happened yesterday.
Does it surround Mr. Clover?
Yes. What happened?
He had a heart attack. Is he okay?
I'm sorry. He didn't make it.
Good lord, that's awful. I think that might have been the biggest gut-wrenching experience I've ever had in my life so far.
No kidding. And so sudden as well.
And so undeserved. That man had been through so much, and he had done so much for not just the railway, but the island as a whole. And despite that, he got a bitter end. There was a region-wide funeral for him. After all, he was a widely popular and well-respected person in the eyes of all the Sodrians. Even Duke Ethan VI, who by then was in rapidly declining health and state of mind, still showed up and paid his respect, since him and Mr. Clover had been close companions for the better part of 30 years. And it was the support of the Duke and their subpar cooperation that had helped the railway blossom. One could only wonder how things would have gone without the Duke's support. Well, we eventually got to see that after Clover's passing.
Why? What happened to the railway after his passing?
Well, with his sudden and unexpected passing, there was all of a sudden a big power vacuum left within the board of directors. And unfortunately, Mr. Clover had not appointed any successor. So, immediately after his passing, a massive infighting erupted within the board of directors. It was grim. Julian, who I previously mentioned, was made temporary controller until the board could make a decision. But, in Julian's own words, the situation brought out the worst of everybody. Despite Julian technically having the power, he had loads of competition. Despite seeming like the obvious successor, something that was partly proven during his tenure as acting controller, he was quickly overshadowed by some of the other competitors. None more infamous than Remis Carter. Even the name makes me mad.
I suspect this man wasn't someone you liked.
That would be an understatement. Remis was, how should I put it, difficult. The sort of man who constantly spoke like he was above you, even when he was asking for your help. He always wore gloves, even indoors, and carried a polished cane he didn't need. Said it was a symbol of stability. Stability my buffers. He was snobbish, rude, obnoxious, and most of all, entitled.
Okay, definitely sounds like a horrible person. But if you wouldn't mind me asking, with such character traits, how did he even make it to being considered as Mr. Clover's successor, let alone become a board member?
Well, first of all, he became a board member simply by having so many connections. He had gained these through his father's enormously rich shipping company, which he had inherited by then, so he barely had to do anything to gain much leverage. But you see, when it came to running for controller, Remis had a gift. Not for leadership, mind you, not in the way Mr. Clover had, but he knew how to talk. Not just speak, talk. He had a way of saying things that made people believe in impossible futures. Big, bold proposals, grand reforms, restructuring schemes that, well, sounded mad at first. But then he'd twist them just enough to make them seem plausible. And when people are desperate for direction in time of grief, as was the case this time, plausible was more than enough. Julian was trying his best to keep them out of civil, but he had no chance with the presence of Remis. Not just regarding who spoke, but also who voted. You have to understand, by this point, the board was aging. Many of them were Clover contemporaries. Tired, weary, and far too ready to retire. And when they did, Remis made sure that their replacements just so happened to agree with him, or owed him a favor, or were plucked from his own little circle. Before long, every seat that changed hands seemed to lean in his way. Bit by bit, the board became less a battleground and more of a stage. His stage. Julian, God love him, was outmatched. But that was not from a lack of trying on his part.
Gentlemen, I'd like to begin by reaffirming what this railway stands for. Stability, steady progress, and public trust. These last few months have been trying, but with careful guidance, I believe we can continue that sense of direction that Mr. Clover built.
Hey, Julian, with respect, we've heard the talk. What we need now are decisions.
Then let's make some. I propose we begin by focusing on internal consolidation. We have a lot of assets and possibilities to work with, so we'll streamline our schedules, our operations, and fixate on bringing the absolute best possible experience to the traveling public. This way we'll continue to maintain our steady growth and stability.
Stability? Julian, forgive me, but when a ship's taking on water, patching the sails won't keep it afloat.
I'm not suggesting we ignore the problems, Remis. I'm suggesting we address them practically, without risking what's left of our footing.
And I'm suggesting we create new footing. The public doesn't want another year of consolidation. They want results. Faster trains, expanded service, lower fares, bigger vision. We've been operating the same way for way too long. It's getting dated now. It's dusty and slow. The Duke himself has expressed a desire for modernization. Are we going to ignore that?
You've spoken with the Duke.
We've spoken. I merely listened. And what I heard was a young man eager to lead. Eager for progress.
But the progress is something we should approach properly, with realistic plans and visions.
And yet, I feel embarrassed to have to remind you, Julian, we're still not working towards one of the railway's original goals. Tell me, Julian, how do you suggest we approach that?
Well, like I just said, with realistic and proper plans that we can realize within our capabilities.
But that's been the railway's philosophy since day one. And yet, 25 years on, we're still not there yet. We have a choice, gentlemen. We either take bold steps forward and show the island this railway still matters, or we cling to tradition and watch ourselves become irrelevant, slowly, elegantly forgotten.
And how would you proceed, Mr. Carter?
Simple. Approach risky and reap the rewards. We have a lot of crucial things to achieve, none more important than the mainland connection. That should be the number one priority. Then after that, we can focus on the other grand visions I have in store.
That sounds ambitious.
Everything worth doing is.
And what of the risk, Remis?
Julian, if we fear the risk, we hand the future off to someone else. I'd rather it be us.
Perhaps it's time we voted. And what happened?
Safe to say the vote was overwhelming. In Remis's favor. He was unanimously voted as the railway's new controller.
Well, I guess that was expected.
It was. And with Remis now in charge, they immediately started planning the really ambitious stuff. The stuff that would have been controversial back in the day.
Why wasn't it controversial anymore?
Well, that simply comes down to what support the railway could gain for such undertakings, especially when surrounding the Duke. Ethan VI, God rest him, had been the railway's strongest political backer since day one. Balanced, level-headed, he understood the vision better than most. Unfortunately, he passed away shortly after Mr. Clover, and with his passing, the throne went to his son David II, who was just 19 years old by then. Green as spring leaves and twice as eager to prove himself. Remis saw it instantly, that need for validation, that hunger to matter. So what does Remis do? He feeds it. He talks to the lad like he's the second coming of Brunel, fills his ears with promises of progress, empire, and glory. The boy ate it up. And with the Duke holding a third of the votes in political matters, well, safe to say Remis wasn't playing fair. He was playing smarter. And with the Duke's favor in his back pocket, Remis could really go all in on his ambitions.
Well, Your Grace, I am honored to be in your presence today. It is a great pleasure to be able to present the biggest undertaking so far in the railway's history. We have 3 major projects we plan to work on. First one, and arguably the most important one, we're to finally realize the railway's final goal, the anticipated mainland connection. The proposal includes a rolling bridge so we can cross the channel easily while not disturbing the shipping services. We've also arranged with the Furness Railway to have the station at Barrow expanded so we can have our own platforms. That'll be the first priority. Second thing we're planning to do is to extend the main line to Kildane, branching off from Kelsthorpe. This is in anticipation of a future undertaking we're planning to do, which is to give Peel Godred a railway connection. Finally, the third thing we're planning to work on is a major expansion of Kirk Ronan Harbour. With the ever-increasing traffic that it sees, we want to be sure that it can handle it for many years to come.
That's quite the proposal, Mr. Carter.
I believe ambition is only dangerous when it's directionless, Your Grace. This plan, our plan, has purpose, and the timing is perfect.
Why so?
Because there's a renewed sense of optimism within the railway's board. We feel more than ready to tackle these new challenges, and we're confident we can pull it off.
Even the more optimistic parts. A bridge across the channel. That's been spoken of for decades. Some say it's not possible.
They said the same of the tunnel at Ballyhoo, and the mining network at Great Watton. Progress always seems impossible until it's built.
I'm not doubting your intentions, Remis. But this, as you said, is the largest expansion project of the railway since its founding. The costs, the logistics, the political entanglement with the Furness and the shipping unions,
all accounted for, Your Grace.
And Barrow, you're sure you'll have your own terminus tracks?
2 platforms, Your Grace. I have written consent from the Furness Railway. It'll finally give us the proper connection with the mainland network we've dreamed of. And the benefits are not to pass up on. The trade, tourism, commerce, it'll all gain a significant boost from this.
You make it sound so easy.
Oh, nothing about this is easy, Your Grace. But it is necessary. The world beyond the island grows faster every day. We either connect, or we get left behind.
Remis, this is bold. Perhaps too bold. My advisors, many of them already thinking the railway's reaching too far, say we ought to consolidate, not sprawl.
With all due respect, Your Grace, you are not your advisors. Your father ruled with caution. It made him respected. But you have the chance to be remembered not just as a steward, but as a builder. This isn't about trains or terminals. It's about the future of this island, and your place in shaping it.
And you truly believe we can do all this?
Not just believe, Your Grace. Plan, prepare, deliver. And when we do, they'll remember whose hand made it possible.
Then you have my blessing, Remis.
Begin the preparations. Thank you, Your Grace. History shall remember your vision.
Morning, engines.
Good morning, Julian. What's with the frown?
Well, it has happened. Remis is not even 2 months into his term, and he's already presented a ludicrous proposal.
Oh, good lord. Well, what does he come up with?
Right, it goes like this. First of all, I should quickly mention that this will be the single biggest undertaking in the railway's history.
Of course it is.
The proposal includes 3 separate projects. A mainland connection, an expansion of Kirkronan Harbour, and a mainline extension to Kildane.
All 3 at once?
All 3 at once.
Oh, for Christ's sake. He really has no idea what he's doing. That's about the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Well, maybe not the ideas individually, but all 3 at once is downright insane. I know our economy is pretty strong, but there's no way he can support that.
Well, having worked as the railway's financial director for a few years now, I can certainly tell you they are indeed going overboard with this.
Wait, I'm confused. As financial director, don't you have a big say in whether or not any project gets approved?
You are absolutely right, Whiff. That's how it's supposed to be. But in a very unsurprising move from Remis's part, I've been demoted from that role.
What? Are you serious?
Yep. I've been replaced with a longtime companion of his, Cornelius Hammersmith.
No, did you seriously say Cornelius?
Yep. Him.
Oh, for Christ's sake. Cornelius Hammersmith. Isn't he the guy who's been accused of embezzlement? On 3 separate occasions, one of which he was actually charged for. And his father is the president of the Sodor National Bank.
That's also true.
And he has 3 enormously expensive mansions to his name.
4. 2 in Sodor, 1 in London, and 1 he recently bought in Spain.
So what you're saying, Julian, is that the new financial director for one of the biggest private companies on Sodor has no experience nor education in handling large sums of money.
That's pretty spot on, Whiff.
Well, this can only go well.
And what about you, Julian? Are you out of the company?
No, not quite.
But I'm merely just a board member now, with no real assigned position, which is definitely intentional on Remis's part, since that keeps me, the only real opposition to his views, in check. So, I'm on the board, but I don't really have any power.
That's a very awkward position to be in.
Oh, absolutely. I'm honestly surprised he hasn't kicked me from the company, but maybe he likes to keep me around for the entertainment. Also, I'm pretty sure he knows that I'm the only board member left who you engines actually want to listen to.
Can't argue with that. But for the sake of entertainment, it's just cruel.
It's interesting to say the least. I'll remain the opposition, however challenging that's going to be, so here's hoping I can make a little difference.
But not with this project, I assume.
Oh no, that's already signed and sent off. It's good to go.
Also signed by the Duke.
He was the first person to sign it. Poor guy, I feel really bad for him. He might just be in a worse position than me.
It's not a good idea to let a boy of that age and background become as powerful as he is now. But that's the line of succession. He wasn't even heir for a full year. Might get a bit rough for him.
Most certainly. Anyway, returning to the project, there's one more thing I was to talk about.
Would that be about who he wants to carry out the construction work?
Yes, it would be.
Let me guess. Is it me, Clive, and Matthew?
Yes. You 3.
And why would he want us to do it?
Well, to quote the man, 'cause you're old, dilapidated, and of no better use.
Well, how kind of him?
He has said worse.
I figured. Can I ask something, Julian? Can we say no?
That, Clive, is what I also want to figure out. I was 100% sure you were going to decline, so I got curious as to how he would react to it.
You're feeling a bit cheeky, aren't you?
Only slight. Might as well cause some disturbance early on. I've got nothing to lose, really.
I guess not. Well, let us know what happens.
I will indeed.
They said what?
They said no, Remis.
It's sir now, Julian.
They said no, sir.
The audacity. The old tea kettles. They should be thankful that I'm giving them a purpose. That's about the only thing they're suited for. Construction work and railway maintenance.
Are you ignoring their work on the Great Watton branch?
I am not denying the fact that they're good workers for their age. But in truth, it's almost wrong for them to be there on that branch. There's Great Watton, such a powerful and important city to Sodor. And yet, their main form of transport is some antique boxes that are well past their service life.
Far from it, sir. In fact, they've been delivering a world-class performance to that line. And, if I might add, the regulars love them. And at the end of the day, it gives the line a little bit of character.
So you're saying I can't retire them?
You would get a lot of backlash if you did. Not just from passengers, but from the other engines as well.
Well, good thing I wasn't planning to do that anyway. As much as I don't want them to be a part of the roster, I can't deny the fact that they're basically the railway's mascots. It would also be a bit of a rude gesture with regards to Mr. Clover.
You have respect for him?
I mean, he created the railway after all. He started this whole ideal, and it's an honor to continue his vision.
Speaking of which, if not Neil, Clive or Matthew, then who to carry out the construction?
Simple. We'll just buy some new engines. There's plenty on the market.
That you can afford within the budget?
Who cares about the budget, Julian? We might go in debt, but it'll pay back over time. Also, we have state support, so we have nothing to worry about.
Well, I'll relay that to the engines, and leave you to figure that out.
So cautious. No optimism at all. Hello, you two.
Hello, Mr. Carter, I assume?
Please, call me sir. I've been looking forward to your arrival. We're just about to kick off our latest expansion project, and you two are to help with that. I hope you're up for the challenge.
Absolutely, sir. We're more than ready for it.
Excellent. We'll be working in two directions. At Vickerstown, one of you will aid with an extension to the mainland, while the other will help with an extension to Kildane. The project lead will give you further information once you're ready to start. For now, you turn to Crevens Gate. It's straight ahead once you leave the dock. There's a good train you can bring along. That would be greatly appreciated.
Of course, sir. By the way, I don't think we ever introduced ourselves. I'm Benson.
And I'm Charlie.
Very well.
Okay, first impressions? A peculiar man. Didn't even want to know our names. Very strange. Well, I guess we better make a good first impression. Let's go. Well, that's a very pretty route.
No question, but we saw two engines.
I'd imagine there's a few more than that on this railway. Me too. Where is everybody?
You know, I wonder why he wants to work on such a project, considering the context. From what I've heard, Benson seems to be a very chipper and kind fella. I doubt an engine of his persona would want to contribute to something so risky.
I think that he's deliberately kept oblivious to all the context. I'm pretty sure that's also why we haven't been given any opportunity to interact with them, because if we did, they'd get to know the entire backstory, which would probably alter their opinion on the project, and that's something I doubt Remis would want.
Intentionally keeping the newcomers from interacting with their soon-to-be colleagues. Cruel.
At this point, such an act doesn't surprise me, but I'm pretty sure Benson has had a conversation with Reed once.
And Reed is a quiet engine, so I doubt he got much out of that. Let's just hope he doesn't talk to Norris.
Oh, for sure. If anything is to alter his work ethic, then it would be Norris.
Absolutely.
But considering how much is expected of Benson especially, I do feel very bad for him.
Oh, no question. He's not just doing an extension like Charlie. There's that entire rolling bridge on top of it, which might just be the single most extreme construction effort the railway will ever face. So there's a lot riding on his wheels.
And let's not forget the fact that he's a passenger engine.
I doubt he has much experience with handling such work.
It would not be much, if any for that matter.
And we don't even know how complicated the rolling bridge is going to be.
They haven't picked a design yet?
Not according to Julian. I think they concluded the bidding phase a few days ago.
So they don't even have a design yet?
Nope.
Huh. Poor Benson. Morning, sir. Ah, Ragnar. Good to see you. Good to see you too, sir.
Congratulations on winning the design bid.
I heard it's ambitious, functional, and maybe even pioneering. That's what I was trying to go for, sir. I wanted to really show my abilities in the best possible way, so I allowed myself to go all in on this design. Well, let me see what you came up with. The bridge will rise on one side, featuring some precisely calculated weights, which will make the process quick without putting too much strain on the structure. Impressive. The only thing to consider is that, since this is so sophisticated, it looks like it'll be a rather expensive project on its own. What are we looking at? Upwards of £200,000. Ooh, very ambitious. Well, we should be able to manage that. I understand that the price is a result of the detailed and sophisticated design. But with that in mind, I believe that such a bridge would be able to hold for a long time. So, it's a long-time investment. That's what I was thinking as well. Since it'll be a big and important undertaking for the railway, I think it should be done properly.
Well said, Ragnar. I like the way you think, and I like your talent. Seems there's a lot of potential in you.
Thank you, sir.
Tell me something, Ragnar. What's your current occupation?
Well, I just finished my education in architecture, but I've engaged with engineering for most of my life since my father works in that field. So I was able to utilize that for my design here.
I see. And what are your plans now that you're done with school?
Well, I'm still on the look for anything where I can use my skill. I haven't had much luck so far, but I'll keep searching.
Well, in that case, I might be able to help you with that.
Help me with what?
A job. One where you can fully utilize your talent.
Go on.
Well, our current locomotive superintendent is in the midst of retiring. He's had a long and respectful career on this railway. We currently have an acting superintendent, but we're still on the look for someone proper to overtake the position. And I think you seem like the perfect fit for that role.
Locomotive superintendent?
It matches your wishes. Engineering with a hint of architecture.
Well, I'm thrilled by the confidence, sir. And if I'm totally honest, that's always been a small dream of mine. So if you'd like to have me on for that position, I'd be more than happy to accept.
Well, that's wonderful to hear, Ragnar. It would be an honor to have you working for the railway. We'll make sure that you can easily move in by the time you're ready.
Fabulous. That just made this trip even more worth it. But I gotta go catch my train now. Have to make some new arrangements.
Of course. I'll refrain from spending any more of your time. Oh, morning, Julian.
Good morning, Whiff.
No good news from the board.
I wouldn't necessarily say that.
So everything's normal then?
Just about.
I see.
Well, watch the news then. They found a new guy to replace John as the locomotive superintendent. A young up-and-coming architect named Ragnar Archer. The same guy who delivered the final design for the rolling bridge. So already someone that Remis has taken a liking to. Yeah. He had to go with the most expensive bid of all. I guess he wanted to show how modern the railway is going to be.
Yeah. Only at the expense of the railway's finances.
Well, the finances that he doesn't really care about.
That's true, I guess. Young, you say? How young?
Don't really know, but likely in his mid-20s.
Well, that's a lot of confidence in such a young man.
Well, I hear from him that Ragnar is very talented. But I fear he might see the situation a bit like with His Grace the Duke. Young, eager to prove himself, and easily affected by grand words from Remis. I fear that Remis has some interesting plans moving forward with regards to the rolling stock. Actually, I know he has. It was just announced today that the railway is expected to receive 3 new designed goods locomotives to help Raja and the others with the expected increase in goods loads. Also, in anticipation of some new, proper express locomotives to be designed, we'll also be receiving 2 locomotives on loan so they can get some inspiration.
Interesting. I mean, I understand the part about the goods services. That seems to be a fair move. But the express one, not so much. Since Raja, Riker, Remor and Reed are partly free from goods work, won't that result in them having more time to run the faster services?
I feel the same Whiff, but alas, it's not my decision.
If only.
Yeah, if only. But it is what it is.
Very true. Anyway, I'm off in a moment. Were you to join me?
Yes, I'm headed to Vicarstown. Gotta inform the others.
I see. Well, hop aboard then. Hello? Oh, hello. Who are you? I'm Jimmy. I'm one of your new goods engines. You're the help we've been waiting for. Roger's the name. Pleasure to meet you, Jimmy. It's a pleasure to meet you too, Roger. One would almost think that they built some more of my class. You do look pretty similar to me, but I imagine you're most suited for heavy goods work. That's what I've been told. I'm to handle much of the railway's larger goods trains, while you're to focus more on the lighter goods and heavier passenger trains. Yep, that's what I've heard too. Well, I hope there's enough work for us to justify our presence. Yeah. Hopefully indeed. You seem a bit concerned. Well, how much have you interacted with the railway's management? Only a guy called Julian. Well, apart from him. I'm talking about the rest of the railway's board. No, none other than Julian. Well, I'll warn you. They are very ambitious, but a little shady in their approach to management. Oh dear. I don't like the sound of that. I get that. You'll get more details on the way, but there's much doubt between us engines as to whether or not there will be any sufficient work for you. There's going to be 3 of you, right? Yes? Right, and there's 4 of us. So it'll be interesting to see if there'll be enough passenger work for us, especially when they're also planning on acquiring some express locomotives. I see your point. Well, I hear there's a lot of expansion work going on, so maybe we'll have a little bit more by the time that happens. Yeah, hopefully so. Hello? Hello? Remis, I assume? Yes, indeed. But please, call me sir. Yes, sir. Good. I'm happy to see you out of the works, ready for some proper work. We're in the transitioning period where we need some properly designed goods locomotives, and hopefully you'll be able to satisfy our desires. I'll try my very best, sir. That's good to hear. And there's a lot resting on your wheels, since you're expected to be very busy. Yes, I can imagine, given the extensive work you're currently carrying out. Oh yes, we have several ongoing initiatives that are aimed at boosting the railway's productivity and economy, thereby allowing us to expand even further once we're in better position. Well, I'll be happy to play a part in that, sir. Excellent. But before we get to that, you have to prove yourself. You are to start trial runs tomorrow. We'll focus mostly on goods runs, but you also have to carry out some passenger runs, just to test your capabilities. I understand, sir. I'll do my very best tomorrow then. Great. I'll see you later then. Hello there. Hello, laddie. Good to see someone here. I hope we've landed on Sodor. You have indeed. That's a relief. We weren't sure since we had to be rerouted. Would you be the new engines for express services? Yes, that would be us. I see. Is there something wrong? Well, nothing more than the fact I was expecting you to arrive via rail, and not on boat. How would we arrive via rail? Well, we have a rolling bridge that connects us to the mainland. Really? We were told we could only get to the island with a boat. Well, then again, I don't know whether or not the bridge is actually done. It should be by now. That was the original plan. But given the, well, interesting approach to the expansion projects we have, I would not be surprised if it's behind schedule. That to me sounds like the railway has some problems. Oh, my dear chap, that would be an understatement. You'll pick it up in a short while. But enough of that. It's a pleasure to meet you regardless. What's your names? I'm Taylor. And I'm Joseph. Now's the name. Welcome to the railway, lads. I wish I could stick around and get to know you a little more, but I have to head out with a passenger train. I hope we'll get more time later on to talk. Very well, Niall. We'll see you later.
Hello, Benson.
Niall was it?
Yep.
Right.
What's going on here?
Well, I'm waiting for some girders to take to the bridge. They should have been here a few minutes ago, but as you can see, they're not.
Well, there was a bit of a kerfuffle at Crum's Gate. Maybe they got lost there.
Plausible, I guess, but hopefully they can sort it out soon.
Hopefully indeed. Isn't it funny? You've been here for, what, 3 years now? But it's only now we actually have a proper chance to chat with each other.
It's very strange indeed, and there's still some I'm yet to interact with. Your brother, for example.
Well, take it from me, I don't think you're ready to interact with him just yet.
Why?
You'll be a different engine from talking to him. Trust me.
Okay.
But anyway, I gotta ask. How's it going with the bridge?
You don't know?
I'm not allowed to see it. None are. Apart from you and Charlie.
I see. Well, you gotta strap in for this.
Why?
It's going horribly as of now. The bridge was supposed to be finished about a month ago. Yesterday, we finished the foundations.
Huh? Just the foundations?
Just the foundations. Something that was supposed to be completed almost half a year ago.
Jeez, what happened?
Let's see. Improper design plans, bad luck with weather, lazy workers, and a build code violation. It took 4 attempts, cause the first 2 washed away during high tide, while the third one had that violation. And we were about 70% done by that point, so we had to redo it all again.
Good lord, that's really bad. Maybe that's why we're not allowed out there. Maybe that's why no one else is.
Keep the public blind. That always goes well.
If that's the way they're going, well, that'll just ruin us.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with the board.
I think no one has. What about the budget?
At this point we should care much about the budget as Remis.
So not at all.
You don't want to know how much we've blown past it.
You're right, I don't. I'm better off without knowing. But what I do know is that this is a very bad sign. If the new board can't properly organize and prepare such an undertaking, then who knows how bad it'll be in the future. Right, Benson, I finally have some good news. I've managed to get some proper engineers to plan the rest of the undertaking. Plus you to receive some more manpower by next week. Hopefully you can make up a little bit of the lost time with this.
That's actually good news.
How'd you manage to pull that off? Honestly, I have absolutely no idea. I'm just as surprised as you are.
I see. Well, at least it's not all bad now. Just mostly bad.
Yeah, just mostly. Sorry to interrupt, but isn't that an increase in the already extortionate spending? Yes, it is. I know. But at this point, what else can I work with? It's gotten to the point now where I have to use some weird strategies to gain any favor. Like, I somehow managed to actually get Cornelius to agree with me for once. You know, the guy who's been giving the go-ahead to all this ridiculous stuff. Huh. Well done, I guess. I wonder, what's his justification for all this spending? One thing. The Great Watton mines. Just that? They are the railway's biggest moneymakers after all. But I get what you mean. Poor justification if it's the only thing he's justifying with.
Well, at this point we'll have to start praying for a miracle to happen.
Yes, we do. That's the least we could ask for right now. Have you heard of the progress? Mm-hmm. Good. You all should know. I'll let you spread the information to the others. With pleasure.
Finally. Barrow. Took long enough. Only 7 months past the deadline. But we're here now. Not long till we're done with this insane project. But one does have to wonder, what will we be doing once it's finished? Both me and Charlie. Speaking of which, I wonder how it's going for him. He should be working on the harbour at Kirk Ronan now, having finished the extension to Kildane about 2 months ago. At least he should have.
I'm telling you all, the harbor's supposed to be done in 3 days. And I'm telling you again, that that's not going to happen within the given time frame. The Barrow project was prioritized, so we're left with fewer resources and manpower. We're working to our best abilities with what we have, but it's very inadequate.
What rubbish management. They can't acquire any significant workforce to handle the load. Shame on them.
Oh, hello. I didn't know they'd given green light for trial runs. Well, considering how far you are right now, they weren't supposed to. But we're already so far behind that they have to overlap some stuff in order not to fall any further. So I know that you're still busy with finishing the station, but we have to test the track as quickly as possible.
I guess that makes sense. New rolling stock, I see.
Yeah, the railway's new express coaches.
Why'd you say it like that?
Because these weren't intended to be the railway's new express coaches. They were to be the new commuter coaches. But, since the budget left for the rolling stock division is equivalent to about 6 shillings, they've decided to continue using the old commuter coaches while reclassifying these as express coaches. Something that, mind you, they weren't designed for.
Well, I'm somehow not surprised. I guess all the money went to the new express locomotives.
Probably. At this point, we better hope they actually produce some good locomotives.
Well, I don't feel eligible to give a guess. So, I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Fair enough.
But how was the run?
Well, excluding the rattle and shaking that the coaches gave, the trip was actually perfectly fine. You've at least done a good job with the track. Hopefully you can also give a bit of care to the line to Kirk Ronan.
What do you mean?
There's a noticeable difference between the track quality of that line and this one. I know that this one is brand new, but when compared, the line to Kirk Ronan is really out of shape.
Well, it was not in the original project to give the line an update, and with the probably very little money we have left, I doubt it'll get any proper maintenance anytime soon.
Well, that's just tops. And a little dangerous.
Management, am I right? Remis seems like the type of guy to bring a ladder to a meeting.
Why?
Because he heard the company was restructuring and wanted to stay on top of things. Oh, come on, that was a pretty good one. No, that was not. Come on, man. Have a little humor.
Evening, everyone. I am very happy to see you all here, because it's important that you hear what I have to say. So, a lot of you might be wondering, how exactly are we going to proceed amidst this slightly difficult construction period? Well, a new plan has been formed, that'll hopefully put things towards an easier path. So the original plan was to have the Kirk Ronan Harbour done by the time we had the grand opening. That's not going to be the case. With both Benson and Charlie now mostly free of their construction efforts, they'll be focusing hard on getting that done as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, 2 weeks from now, we'll have the grand opening of the new mainline extensions. Now, the opening trains were planned to be hauled by our new express locomotives. They're still in the works, however, and will not be done in time for the event. So it'll be you, Joseph and Taylor, who'll be handling those. Also, your temporary loan has been reworked to a full-on lease, since we don't know when we'll be able to cover the trains ourselves. After the grand opening, we'll have a new timetable put in motion, with an increase in passenger services. Roger, Riker, Remore and Reed, along with Niall, Norris and Whiff, you're to take care of those. As for the heavy goods work, that's of course expected to be handled by Jimmy, Jacob and Jesse. Something I have no doubt you three will be able to do.
Thank you, sir.
Furthermore, once the harbour project is done, we'll need to have some work for Benson and Charlie to do. Since they're not on loan, we'll have to move some things around for that to happen. Now, as much as I hate to say this, given that it's Remis's orders, the current approach to that is to have Benson and Charlie assigned to the Great Watton branch, while you, Neil, Clive and Matthew, are to be retained for shunting duties and maintenance work. I've done so much. Calm down, everyone. I know it's an unpopular choice, but we have to be realistic. Neil, Clive and Matthew, you should be very proud of all the work you've done for this railway. You remain as the railway's mascots and are true role models for what proper hardworking engines should be. But times are changing.
And honestly, sir, I speak for all three of us when I say that we would actually be perfectly happy with shunting work.
I knew it.
I think we're past our mainline career, and branchline career for that matter. Things are simply becoming too much for us to handle. So, for the sake of the railway, we'd be perfectly okay with a change of pace. Well, I suppose that's settled then. Neil, Clive and Matthew, I speak for all of us when I say that we're forever grateful for your care and empathy towards everyone. You really are something special. For the sake of making the best as possible out of the situation, I urge you all to give the best you got. If we are to make it back strong from this, we'd better make sure we do it properly. So I hope that you're all willing to give something to this railway. If not for me, then for Mr. Clover. Can I expect that from you?
Yes,
sir. Thank you. So, Julian, it's time to give me an update. How well are the new services doing? Adequate is the best word I can use. Excuse me? Adequate, sir. Passenger numbers are adequate, goods numbers are adequate, morale is adequate. My dear Julian, I don't think you understand what that word means. I know exactly what that word means, sir. Similar to enough and sufficient. Well, then I assume you're not using it right then. Not for the sake of the railway stats. You really are that naive, sir. You might have to let go of your grand visions and dreams regarding this railway and realize the truth. Things are not going as good as you want them to. We can't just pump out big bold projects that are enormously expensive and expect them to save the world. Not if it's the only thing you do. I shall warn you, from what it looks like, we're not to make a profit this year, and that will be the first time in the railway's history that that's happened. Are you proud of that? You get on my nerves, Julian. You are no visionary. You're no believer. You're no good. If I had the opportunity to sack you, Julian, I would. But it needs board approval. So, next board meeting, tomorrow, I'll put it up for a vote. Let's see how popular you are with the rest of my supporters. Remember, my supporters. Yeah, your supporters. I'm sure they're willing to let go of the only level-headed individual within the entire company. Ugh, get out! As you wish, Remis.
Well, the vote has now been cast.
Right vote.
Essentially, it seems that Remis doesn't want me to be there anymore, so we held a vote within the board to determine whether or not they'd wanted me to be removed as well. And I won the vote.
Wait, really?
9-3, so I ain't going anywhere. And my god, Remis was not happy about that.
Oh, that's wonderful news, sir. You finally got a victory on him.
Apparently so, and a very important one at that.
Indeed. Perhaps it's a sign for better things to come. If Remis' supposed supporters don't agree with him, then maybe they're already realizing what we've already known. Maybe the board will crumble from within itself. The whole thing will collapse, and it'll be beautiful.
A slightly far-fetched take, but I understand where you're coming from. I think they just knew that it would be best for the railway that I stay. Well, we know that for sure. I think the railway would have gone bust if you had left. Perhaps. I guess it can be ruled out. But anyway, me staying on the board doesn't really change much of what's happening and what's going to happen. We're soon to receive the new express locomotives from the works. Fresh designs, featuring lots of inspiration from both Taylor and Joseph. Hopefully, they'll prove to be successful. The express services are at least proving to be somewhat popular. Far from what Remis had expected, nor wanted, but still sufficient. We're at least making a slight profit from it. Well, that's good. And it seems to me that Jimmy and the others are handling the goods very well. It's a bit of a relief not having to juggle all those different services, since it weared an engine out quite a lot. And we're also glad for the help. Those commuter trains were becoming a bit too much to handle by ourselves. Well, it seems that the rolling stock division remains intact and well used. Let's just hope that the new engines are able to help with that.
The predecessor. Lovely. It's good to meet you.
Excuse me? Predecessor?
Well, my dear engine, aren't that why we're here? To replace you on these trains of yours.
No, laddie. That was just the original plan. But there's been a change. To make sure that we can keep up with the initial craze, me and my companion, who you just passed on the way here, have had our stay extended. So, you're not here to replace me, just supplement me on the services.
What a shame, Michael. We have to work together with an ancient machine.
I'm 20 years old, mate.
My point exactly. You're starting to look a bit dated now.
Good thing that we're here to get that sorted out. Isn't that right, Michael?
Indeed, Malcolm. It'll be an honor to get this mess sorted out.
Michael and Malcolm, is it?
Yes, it is.
Taylor's mine, but I imagine you don't really care.
No.
Well, we're thankful for the help we're to receive. Hopefully. I know you haven't had your trial runs yet, but do keep back with that way of talking. It really doesn't help anyone around here.
Well, seems like you can't handle it then.
Can't handle the truth? Well, I can handle it. You'll just get bored of doing it to me. It'll have zero impact.
We'll see about that.
Don't make it a goal. That's just stupid.
Pretty sights we have here. At last the railway has some proper express engines to call its own. Only took 35 years.
Michael and Malcolm, there are a lot of exciting things to happen now that you're here. We can expand the passenger services even further, also extending down to Kirk Ronan, thereby allowing us to run 2 express services. Now there's a lot of expectations towards your performance, so can I rely on you to deliver that?
Of course, sir. We'll be more than happy to give our best performance.
We can promise you, sir, you won't be disappointed. Confident, are you?
Absolutely, sir. Not an ounce of dread.
Wonderful to hear. I'll let you get settled here for tonight so you can rest for tomorrow. Taylor, go to Crowensgate or something. We need room in the sheds.
You heard him, old-timer. Off you go. What's going on here? Why is it so empty at this very important harbor?
Oh, it's busy alright, but not here. We couldn't expand it enough on this side, so we're moving into the east of town, where we have more room to work with. So this part of the harbor will become more of a passenger terminal.
What a load of rubbish. If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Well, if we don't do anything, it will break. And we're not just fixing it, but improving it as well. You should really think your words through more. What's the matter? I've been working on this for a bit now, but I still get blown back by the scale. It's enormous. Well, I guess they have to make sure we can keep up with the shipping somehow, even if it means going slightly beyond what you need at the moment. True. I just hope there'll be enough shipping to justify all that. I doubt we can survive with such an expensive miss, if it proves to be one. Are you doubting it? Maybe in an unfair way. The current board doesn't exactly have a clean record when it comes to these big projects so far. Far from it. But hopefully this can turn out to be a bit of a breather for it. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I just came up with a good one. Oh god. Why did the sailors abandon the old harbor? I don't know. Cause even the tires were pulling for the new place.
That was a bad one.
The new harbor was eventually finished, and thus the big expansion project was finally done. In total, they'd blown way past the original schedule and budget, finishing 8 months after originally planned, and using about 4 times the original budget to get things complete. It was an extortionate investment. But now, with all finished, it was time to see if it would pay off in the big way that Remis wanted.
And?
Well, it went nowhere near what was hoped. Our services were doing fine, but at that rate it would take decades to catch up with the amount of money owed. Despite us being a bigger railway now, we weren't really doing much better financially, so we were worse off, since we couldn't keep up nearly as well with the cost. 1889 was the first year where the railway didn't turn a profit, and unfortunately it wouldn't be the last. Far from it. Jump to 1895 and we're still losing money. The services aren't doing much better, the goods trains are there, but not necessarily in bulk. The mines are the only real profit makers, while the fishing industry is being slightly outcompeted by others on the island. All in all, the railway is in a worse position than before. So what's the board's grand idea to fix this? Well, not much. The only major thing they did was a major rebuild of Crovan's Gate. New station, new yard, and an expansion of the workshop. You know, just letting more money go in places where it wasn't really needed. But other than that, they just let it sit, hoping it would sort itself out. Which it wouldn't, of course. Julian had several ideas on how to turn the railway's fortunes, some of which were really smart, but they were ignored. That was the new strategy that Remis employed. Just ignore the poor guy. Eventually, in 1897, Remis finally went forward with an idea. The idea? Increase the amount of passenger trains on the main line.
Really? That's all he could muster up in that time?
Yep. Genius, isn't it? So, spending more money that the railway didn't have, 2 new locomotives were acquired. Not build a Crovan's Gate, mind you. He didn't have any time for that. Nope. 2 locomotives bought from the Midland Railway. Samuel and Sebastian. 2 locomotives that proved to be, well, good performers, but not needed since there weren't many more passengers to fill the extra trains. So I guess you can imagine how that helped the railway's finances.
I would imagine it just made it worse.
Yes, it did. Granted, the trains weren't as empty as we thought they would be, but it was still disappointing. So now, there's even more stuff to fix. But we would have to wait until 1905 before the railway did anything about it. And it was even more disappointing. Let me give you some context. By this point, in terms of quantity of goods handled, the amount of passengers served, were worse off than ever before. The harbour, as good as it proved to be, was pretty bare. There wasn't much traffic going through, nor was there many passenger ships docking at the old harbour. A lot of that went to Brendam. It's funny to think about. By 1905, we were about 4 times larger than the Wellsworth and Sodor Railway, but they were doing so much better financially than us. Like, it's actually crazy once you look at the numbers. Anyway, it should be clear to you all that things need to change. One would think that Remis would have learned from the past, that just expanding the number of locomotives and services wouldn't help. But it proved that that wasn't the case.
Can you run that by me again, sir? We're to receive some new locomotives for some new services that are planned to be introduced. And this time, it's not the same as with Sebastian and Samuel.
Do we really need to hear it?
Remis's orders. I have no choice. Well, just get it out then. So, 2 new locomotives are expected. An express locomotive and a goods locomotive. Now that's just surface level. The real damaging part is looking at the specs for these new locomotives. The express locomotive is going to be a 460, while the goods locomotive is to be a 280.
Are they just copying the Great Western Railway now?
Yeah, Copying is the word. Literally.
Wait, really? At least one regarding the goods locomotive. You know the Great Western recently introduced their 2800 class heavy goods locomotives. Well, Remis knows people who work at the Great Western's drawing office, and managed to get a hold of the drawings. Without their permission, I might add. With that now on hand, Ragnar tweaked the design so it's just independent enough for it not to cause any major damage in the long run. Why not let him draw it from scratch? Well, time. Remis wanted it done as quickly as possible. Ragnar already had the express design on hand, having casually worked on it for the past year, but he didn't have any for a goods locomotive. But at least in that case, the express locomotive is going to be an original design. But still, this does not seem like the right approach for handling the railway's current situation. Far from it. I'm getting to the point now where I might start considering doing something other than railway work. If not, then at least attempting to do something bolder within the board. I am sick and tired of it. Things need to change. Drastically. But if anyone is to do it, then it's without a doubt you, sir. Thank you, Samson. I'll see what I can do.
Well, look at that. Finally a worthy express colleague. None of that ancient and foreign stuff we've been working with. Properly built Sutrian express power. What's your name? Mine is Michael, and mine is Malcolm.
It's Mr.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you, mister. Hopefully we can work together to deliver some fine express results for the railway.
What gives you the right to compare yourself to me?
Well, express colleagues on equal status has to see each other eye to eye.
We are not on equal status.
What?
You really think that you, some tiny 440s, are equal to an engine like me, on the same level? Well, think again. I can haul more than you can ever dream of. I can go faster with a full load than you can go with no load. I'm the better crowd pleaser. I am better. Let it sink in, and don't ever approach me without my permission.
That ain't no proper express engine. What a load of rubbish. Do we seriously have to work with that? I hope not. That would not be fun. But I think we do.
Who was that? I don't know. Hello, my name's Chester. I was to meet some of my new goods colleagues here. I imagine that's you. Hello, Chester. Well, you've made it to the right place then. I'm Jimmy. And I'm Jacob. I gotta say, we were given some general stats about what you were going to look like, but seeing you in person now, you're quite an impressive sight. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm hoping to put my abilities to good use. They said I was among the most powerful locomotives in the UK, and that's likely going to be a little problem. Why? Isn't more power good? Well, for a lot of railways, it is. The thing is, we aren't among those railways. In fact, we don't really need much more power than we already have. Come on, Jacob. Show a bit of support to my presence. I would like to, Chester. But I must be honest, and someone has to. We're in a situation right now where our board is spending too much on the wrong things. We're lacking any sufficient goods work for an engine like you, let alone 3 of us. For example, that lot over there is what I brought in about 20 minutes ago. Sizable for sure, but not really challenging. Not for me at least, nor would it be for you. So you see, there's going to be a lot of problems matching what you can pull. You know what? I think you're just afraid. What? Afraid that I'll take over all your goods work. That I'll be the pride of the goods crew while you're slowly superseded. If that's really the way to greet a new engine, then I'll make sure to respond in an equal manner. Maybe I worded that wrong. You tried at least. Maybe Julian can talk to him a little easier. I hope he'll at least get what I meant. I was only trying to inform him. Well, he doesn't know the context, so I guess such a reaction is fair. He'll probably pick it up soon. But I wonder, what goods work will they actually arrange for him? Because I doubt we have anything sufficient. The goods work that was assembled for Chester was, well, minimal at best. As expected, there was nowhere near enough for him to feel satisfied in his work.
The only service that came somewhat close was the mineral trains from the mines, but even those were woefully inadequate to his power. Then there was Mr. Mr. was built to work on a newly established express service that was intended to be a little grander than the ones Michael and Malcolm were hauling. However, they still only had the same poor express coaches to work with, so the result was very lame when compared to what was promised. The service proved to be very unpopular, and it was never even close to being full during its time of operation. And the thing was, that was more or less the only thing that Mr. really pulled. Just that service alone, that ran a handful of times a day. No more. It simply wasn't worth it to have him run the other services since Joseph, Taylor, Michael and Malcolm ran those perfectly fine. You could never tell how Mr. felt about it. He never showed any emotion, never spoke with anyone. I don't even know if he thought much at all. Well, he would eventually, when, in early 1907, he had quite an uncomfortable experience.
I know I'm not allowed to talk to you, mister, but I'll do it anyway. I'll make it brief though. Michael is having some trouble building up steam probably. It seems his pipes are blocked. Can you cover for him on the morning express train? Sure. Good. Off you go then. May I talk to you? Yes, you may. How are you feeling right now? Not good. I feel guilty. 23 people on my record. I can understand that. That definitely came out of left field. I can imagine that it's a hard thing to comprehend at the moment. Yes, sir. I can, however, tell you, if it makes you feel better, that none of it was your fault at all. You were doing exactly what you were supposed to. Someone, however, who wasn't doing that was the board. There was a very simple reason to why you derailed. That track on that line is in terrible shape. I checked the records. Last time that section had any proper maintenance was 16 years ago. So simply put, the track was in no shape to support an engine like you. Even a 4-4 was a little risky on that line. I see. Well, I guess that does make me feel a little better. But that damn board. No care for safety whatsoever. None at all. But hopefully, this can be a bit of a wake-up call for them to perhaps get some work done on that problem. We can only pray. Yes.
Safe to say, they didn't do anything about it.
Nothing?
Cleaned up the mess, repaired the broken bit of track, and left. That was that.
No, come on. They can't be that ignorant. And disrespectful.
Oh, they could. And I'm sorry to say, when it came to being disrespectful, there was worse to come. And on short notice. In fact, just 6 days after Mister's crash, we would suffer an even worse catastrophe.
Well, at least there's a bit of goods for Chester to handle. Hopefully you can make him a little happy. What's that noise? What the hell? Well, it appears our misfortunes weren't limited to Mister's crash. What's the result, sir?
Well, a large section of the coal mine has collapsed. As if we weren't to suffer enough from the crash, we now have to endure even more. And this time, it's even worse. The reports are not complete as of right now. However, the current numbers are not good. At least 44 people are presumed dead, having been in the mine when it happened. The current cause? I don't know. Nobody knows yet. This came even more out of left field. And now, we have even more on our hands. Way more than we'd ever want. How we, or they, are going to handle this, I don't know. It's impossible to tell. Samson, you are not to work for a bit. I've arranged for you to get some help since I know this was a very traumatic experience for you.
The one time I finally get to work at a place that's close to where I started my working career, I experience what no person nor engine should. I shouldn't have been there today.
You shouldn't look at it like that, Samson. All of that was way out of your control. You just happened to be an unfortunate spectator.
That's one way of saying it.
I don't know if I have any trust in the board to handle this situation, but I'll do my damn best to make them handle it properly. If they don't, it might well kill the railway.
Well, that would be one more casualty to the record then.
This is about the lowest point. The railway was in a worse position than ever before. In the span of just 1 week, the railway was suddenly responsible for the death of 67 people and another 100 or so injuries. Never before have we experienced anything like this. We'd kept a clean record until then, somehow, but that was now completely shattered. And to think, both of those incidents were the railway's fault.
Even the collapse of the mine?
Even the collapse of the mine. The investigation following the mine's collapse would prove to be quite damaging. The conclusion was simple. The mine collapsed because of weak supports, or rather a bill code violation that was deliberately overlooked during an expansion of the mine's network. The prior support designs, which were very sturdy and strong, were overlooked in favor of a simpler and much cheaper alternative that, well, proved to be fatal. It shouldn't surprise you to know that the company responsible for the supports was the same company that had provided the bill code violation for the rolling bridge. A company, mind you, that Remis had a lot of equity in.
So, conflict of interest?
Pretty much. The man went out of his way to avoid more competent and well-trusted construction companies, just to avoid the pretty lucrative contract to a company that he would get a significant pay from as a result. And yeah, safe to say, Remis greatly increased his wealth through this.
I'm lost for words. You're telling me that Remis prioritized his wealth over safety?
Yes, he did.
Oh, for Christ's sake. I thought I'd heard the worst of him, but I guess not. I guess that leads to the obvious follow-up question. How did the board handle the two incidents?
Well, I don't know what you're expecting. What I can say is that it was cruel, unethical, and of course, stupid. Gentlemen, as you're all aware, last week brought us significant setbacks. The express derailment at Rolf's Castle claimed the lives of 23 passengers. Additionally, 83 were injured, 19 of them critically. The cause? Deterioration of the outer rail on curve 17B. The investigation confirms that it had not been properly inspected since 1891. The cleanup I've previously laid out has now been completed. The line is now ready to receive traffic once again. We will make no formal statements. No vigils, no plaques. We acknowledge the tragedy by returning to service. Swiftly and without theatrics.
Theatrics.
The press will of course speculate. Let them. We will not dignify hysteria with panic. The public sees silence as strength. Dignity, control.
Yeah, and I'm sure the families of the dead will find that very comforting.
Julian, you'll have your turn.
Will I? Or will this be another performance where we all clap and nod while you feed us with more delusion?
Delusion is refusing to acknowledge that mourning costs more than rebuilding. Now, the second matter. Unreported, as of this morning. The collapse of the Great Watton coal mine. 44 workers unaccounted for, presumed dead. Partial collapse blamed on unsealed shaft failures and a lack of any proper reinforcement stemming from the section's weak supports. It is imperative this incident does not reach the press. Not yet. The public can weather one storm, but not two. We must control the narrative, delay acknowledgement, and redirect attention.
You're covering it up?
We are buying time. You're burying men twice. Once on the stone, and again on the silence. Julian, please. No. No more sitting quietly while this board sells its soul to avoid headlines. 23 people are dead from a crash that you caused. And now 44 more, crushed under a mine you neglected. And what's the answer? Sweep it, spin it, forget it ever happened? Enough, Julian. No! You do not get to silence this, Remis. You don't get to present this as some clever game of optics. These are human beings. Workers, mothers, fathers, children. You speak of dignity while offering none. Julian, if you are unable to contribute constructively, you may excuse yourself. Constructively! The only construction happening in this room is the wall you're building between truth and accountability. Get out, Julian! One day, you won't be able to hide behind that voice and that suit and that polished lie of yours. One day it'll catch up to you, and when it does, no amount of silence will save you. You are excused, Julian Cecil. Now, regarding the next wave of expansions, how are we doing on that? Julian? Oh, whiff. Thank God. I need a level-headed individual to talk to. Good Lord, Julian. You look in terrible state of mind.
I feel so.
What happened? Well, you know when we hoped that the board would handle these two incidents in a somewhat dignified way? Yeah? Well, I can tell you now that it's nowhere near what we were hoping for. What's the planned approach? Sweep it under the rug. No. No further statements on Mr.'s crash, and no statement at all on the mine's collapse. In fact, they plan to keep it from the public. Are you kidding me? I freaking wish. I'm done. I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore. They've crossed the line for good now. This is straight up evil. That seems to be a bit of an understatement. I don't want to use any worse a title, even though most are perfectly fitting. Right, it's time to take major steps now. They cannot get away with this. I'm declaring war now. War even? Well, that's one way of saying it. I wish you good luck with that, but I'm sorry to say it does seem like a bit of an unwinnable war. And that's probably what Remis is thinking as well. However, I'm 100% sure that there's one ally I can gain that'll get things moving in my favor. Who? The Duke. The Duke. The Duke. The same Duke who signed off on all those destructive construction projects. The very same. Though, not quite the same man. Remember, David II was young when all this began, inexperienced and hungry for validation. Remis fed him grand promises of glory, legacy, and progress, and he believed it. But by the time of the two incidents, he changed. He was now in his early 40s, much more confident. He'd grown into his role as Duke, and gained something that made him dangerous to men like Remis. Dignity and wisdom. So what happened? Remis kept him in the dark, same as the public. The Duke was never shown any real reports or financial records. As far as David knew, the railway was doing fine. His role had been reduced to that of a simple wallet, another source of income. And with the sudden financial crash of 1905, David had his hands full stabilizing the economy. The last thing on his desk was railway oversight. Remis used that. For years he kept David blind. That was, until a certain whistleblower came knocking. Julian? Walked into the Duke's office with 3 suitcases full of documents, reports, invoices, letters, everything. And when David saw it all laid bare, he was furious. Any shred of trust he might have had left on the board vanished that day. David was fed up with the broken promises, greedy attitudes, and lies that the railway's board members were presenting him. Julian was assured that things would be taken care of. So, 2 days later, he called a meeting with Remis to discuss the future. Afternoon, Your Grace.
Afternoon, Remis.
It's Sir, Your Grace.
See, I don't really know if you're still deserving of that title.
I'm sorry? Don't be daft, Remis. Hiding a tragedy from the public, not bothering to address the cause of the Rolf's Castle crash? What kind of ruthless thing is that? Your Grace, if we put any more spotlight on the crash, it would only worsen the situation. As for the mine, if it got out to the public, our reputation would suffer greatly.
And you think that hiding it was the better thing to do? Let me tell you something, Remis. When this reaches the public, something it'll do tomorrow, by the way, your reputation will suffer even more than it would've.
You're right, Your Grace. That was a terrible mistake. I promise that we'll make things right. Our efforts will increase, but I can assure you that we're working our hardest to make the Sodor and Mainland a better railway.
Is that so? You know you have a lot of catching up to do.
What do you mean?
You haven't turned a profit in 17 years, and it has increasingly been getting worse. Not only that, you're financing all of this with state money. Remis, I ask you no more than what's necessary. I simply ask you one thing. Make profit.
Oh, well, on that note, we have a few things to present to you, Your Grace. We have several plans to help the fortunes of the railway. We've already made preparations for the cement work that we promised, so we can bring some more income to the railway. Based on our calculations, the profits from this establishment will be able to cover the loss of the mine. Also, perhaps more vital to our recovery plan, is a project that we're working on, which is another extension to our main line, this time running all the way to Peel Godred. We'll be able to serve the businesses way more efficiently than the roads currently are. It's quite ambitious, I know, but we're taking the right steps to make sure it'll be done in the most proper way possible.
You didn't let me finish.
What?
I simply ask you one thing, Remis. Make profit with what you have.
Well, Your Grace, with the current predicament that we're in, we've concluded that it's simply not possible to do such a thing with what we have at the moment.
Interesting. Because I had one of the board members in for a meeting a few days ago, and I asked him the exact same question, to which he gave some pretty remarkable responses.
You did? Who?
Someone who is quite highly ranked within your circle of board members, and one you don't agree with one bit.
Julian?
Oh, so you do recognize him? Weird. He says the exact opposite.
Well, Your Grace, he's a bit of a mood kill. He tends to over-dramatize a lot of our proposals, something that we think is completely unnecessary.
And something that I support. He is the only level-headed individual within all the board members. He's the only one to suggest sensible actions, some of which are very clever. It's a shame that you ignore him, since his ideas are really well thought out.
Oh, lovely. What did he suggest?
See, you'd really like to know that, wouldn't you? Shame you have to ask me about them, and not just listen to Julian when he tried to relay them to you.
He hasn't.
He most certainly has.
Well, then he didn't present them well enough.
Well, if you think his ideas weren't good enough to match my expectations, let's play a little game. You're now to go out on the other side of the door, and you're to come up with as many ideas as you can on how to fix the railway's economy with what you have.
Alright, Your Grace, I can give that a try. How long do I have?
2 minutes.
2 minutes? Your Grace, that doesn't seem like a long time. Can I get a little more?
No. Let's see how well you listen to Julian's ideas. If you did, 2 minutes is too long. Now, off you go.
But, Your Grace...
Remis, 2 minutes are ticking by the second. Did Remis succeed?
No, of course he didn't. The 2 minutes went by and Remis hadn't thought of anything. And that was the final straw for David. Outraged by Remis's lack of level-minded competence, David promptly fired him on the spot.
On the spot? Could he do that?
It's what he did. On the spot. But not just Remis. David had the rest of the board in for meetings just like the one Remis had. And surprise, surprise, more on-the-spot firings happened, which resulted in practically the entire board being sacked.
The entire board?
Practically. Well, one stayed, of course. Julian.
Phew, that is good. What happened to him following the firings?
Well, on the orders of the Duke himself, Julian was promoted to controller.
Seems logical.
And it was. It really was. At long last, Julian could finally do what he'd been trying to push for decades. It was time for the railway to consolidate. And thank goodness he was the one in charge of that. He went straight to work. I wish I could list everything he did, but honestly there were so many changes I've lost track. Still, a few stood out. First thing he did was to hire a brand new set of board members. He brought in new faces. Respected, rational, competent. People the public could trust again. They were instrumental in getting the new systems and operations off the ground. The next thing he did, and perhaps the most important thing, he acknowledged the mine disaster. Publicly. No spin, no excuses. Everything was laid out, plainly and completely. He issued a formal apology, promised full compensation to the victims' families, and made sure that even those who had already filed for lawsuits and such were properly taken care of. 2 memorials were established, one for each tragedy. The way he handled it, with such dignity and respect, it was beautiful. The coal mine itself was closed permanently and the site was abandoned out of respect for the victims. The second major shift, he scrapped every expansion project still in the books, said there was no point in building out when we couldn't take care of what we already had. So, all the railway's capital was redirected, straight into infrastructure. Every inch of track across the network was inspected, reinforced, and upgraded. The difference in ride quality was like night and day. Next, the locomotive roster saw a shake-up. There was no need for so many engines, so it was reduced. Chester was the first one to go, being sold to the Great Western Railway. He was over the moon about this. He'd been fed up the entire time he was there. He had proven to be a very irritable engine, always on edge and ready to lash out. And can you really blame him? He knew his worth, but here on Sodor he was just wasted. Any train he pulled could have been handled by Jimmy, Jacob, Roger, hell even Samson on a good day. There was nothing for him to gain on Sodor. Probably the most obvious first engine to go. Anybody else? Mr. was next, went off to the Northeastern Railway. Then Joseph and Taylor, though that was more a matter of timing. Their leases were ending anyway. Still, it was a heartfelt goodbye. They'd both been key members of the roster. As for Michael and Malcolm, they stayed behind. Why? They were still needed on express services. However, they'd become much more quiet by then. Don't really know what happened. I heard they might have talked to Norris with interesting results. Supposedly, he predicted Mr.'s crash. Spooked them both, I think. Very interesting. Within character, I guess. Were there any other engines who were sold off? Sebastian was also sold off. They only really needed one more engine like him, since With could do his job perfectly fine. The final engine to go was Roger. Roger left as well. It was deemed that 4 of them were just a little bit too much. Now, it was an unpopular choice, but Roger volunteered to be the engine to go. It was met with respectful sadness, as it would be another big goodbye, even more so than with Joseph and Taylor. But it had to be done. With the roster now appropriately sized, Julian tackled the timetable. Any unnecessary or underperforming service was axed. Instead, a more streamlined and fixed service pattern was introduced, with fewer but more frequent services. To boost the express services, the railway leased some proper set of coaches from the Great Eastern Railway to replace the old dilapidated coaches that had been used until then. These were then relegated to the other passenger trains, something that they were much more suited for. As for goods services, since the railway was now without the revenue of the Great Watton coal mine, some major restructuring in the goods sector was implemented. The storm quarry remained in service since it didn't contain those fatal supports that the coal mine did, so the railway was still receiving a fair amount of revenue from that, but it was still decided to diversify the goods work. More contracts were secured, and more frequent and consistent goods services were implemented, resulting in a more reliable operation. Good grief, that's a lot of stuff he carried out. And like I said, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There was one more major thing he did, and it was without a doubt the most controversial thing he did. He proposed the closure of the Norramby branch, and that the Great Watton branch was to become purely an industrial line. Really, he wanted to do that. One major thing he wanted to do was to cut any loss makers from the railway's finances. Things like the underperforming express services and the remaining sections of the coal mine. And unfortunately, by this point, both branches were proving to be a rather big strain on the railway's economy. On the Norramby branch, the fishing industry had become extremely thin. The trains were smaller than ever and there wasn't much else the branch could provide. Its passenger services were doing fine, but they weren't really giving enough back. As for the Great Watton branch, well, that goes back to the problem with the passenger trains, which by then had worsened even more. So, with that in mind, you can't exactly blame Julian for wanting those changes. I guess not, but I can imagine that was not well received by many people. That is very correct. It was a very unpopular choice, one that was heavily protested by locals. So Julian decided on a different approach that would satisfy both parties. Instead, a new railway company was formed to take over operations on the branches, the East Saturn Railway. Now of course, in order for the new railway to be properly served, a few locomotives went along in the process. Primarily it was just the locomotives that were already operating the branches. Benson, Charlie, Kenneth and Maximilian. And one more engine as it would turn out, Ruth. As it turned out, shortly before Mr.'s crash, Remis had purchased yet another engine to add to the roster, and officially for no particular reason. Don't really know what he was thinking. But anyway, after Julian became controller, he tried to cancel the deal since there was no need for yet another engine, but it was too late. And thus, when Ruth finally arrived, she was immediately transferred over to the East Saturn Railway. She thankfully proved to be a great fit, helping the new services get off the ground. Well, call me impressed. That's a lot of changes in such a short time frame. I guess that begs the obvious follow-up question. Did it work? Did the railway finally become profitable? Yes, it did. All the changes proved to be incredibly successful. Goods services were fuller than ever, passenger numbers finally started to climb, and with the very diversified setup, the finances saw a complete turnaround. So much so that already the following year, in 1908, the railway would finally generate its first proper profit since 1889. That's a 19-year break. Crazy that is, and I imagine that had left a lot of debt. Loads of debt. We had a lot of catching up to do, but with the profits now on the rise, we were able to keep up and finally started to pay back what we owed. While not necessarily staggering, it was pretty slow growth, it was still more than acceptable and miles better than the previous decade.
I gotta say, Julian, you've done an outstanding piece of work here. If I'm honest, I was pretty unsure that the railway could be saved in any major way with its finances in such a bad shape. But you proved me wrong. And I, and the rest of the island for that matter, are truly grateful for that. Well, I appreciate the kind words, Your Grace. It's very rewarding seeing the changes work so well as they do. They've basically been in the works for a few years now, with those being among the many suggestions I made for that man. But he never listened. He should have. I should have been more involved as well. To think it went so far is insane. The fact he was willing to bring the railway to its knees just so he could have a boost in his wealth. A sick individual, that man. No doubt about it. But he's thankfully not a part of this anymore. Long gone at last. And now, we can look towards a brighter future. At the moment, it's all about getting the economy back on track. No further expansions anytime soon. Only if the man calls for it, and if we can support it financially. Sounds like the right move, Julian. I'm very optimistic about your abilities. Let's hope that our greatest wishes can be realized.
I'm a little confused right now.
Why?
With the railway doing so well, how did it go bust in the span of a few years?
More bad fortunes. I guess we couldn't escape those.
What happened?
Well, the Great War happened. When Britain declared war on Germany, we suddenly saw a spike in goods work. This was due to much of the island's industrial facilities aiding the British war effort, thus resulting in much more goods to be handled. It quickly proved to be quite a strain for all engines. We had a bit of trouble keeping up properly with the loads. Jimmy, Jacob and Jesse tried their hardest but still needed a bit of help. The passenger trains were reduced so Ragnar and Reed could help more. Thankfully, we didn't suffer any major problems with the shipments since the new harbor proved to be rather effective during the wartime craze. So that was something at least. Is that the main reason for your closure?
Not quite. It certainly didn't help our situation. By then we were close to more or less probably recovering from the debt. But now we were struggling to keep up with the last bit. And then the final nail in the coffin came 2 months after the war officially started. The final event that truly sealed the deal.
Well, if I ever wanted to pull 3 times my usual amount daily, I'd rethink my life choices. This is brutal. Terrible. I've never felt so overworked in my life. I'm surprised we've even kept up so well as we have. Me too. One would have think we'd lost traction by now. But not yet. Granted, we've gotten help from Ragnar and Reed, but still. Absolutely. We would have stopped if they weren't helping. But still, this is my 6th train today, and I'm not even close to being done. Still got many more to go. Me too. I got this one headed to Barrow and then another lot headed back to here again, traversing the whole railway back and forth with such loads. I don't like it. I don't think any of us do, but you should probably get going. Yeah, you're right. I'll get on my way. See you later, Jacob.
Great Scott! What just happened?
Apparently the tunnel just collapsed. This is not good. Matter of fact, this is terrible. Shoot, we better head back to Balu and raise the alarm.
I guess we should have expected more bad luck. It just seems to run with the railway. Why of all times did it have to happen right now? This is the last thing we need. Well, we can fix it, right, sir? Get it cleaned up and resume operations as fast as possible? Evening, engines. I appreciate you all stopping by. I have an announcement. As you know, recently the Ballyhoo tunnel collapsed. It has, quite literally, cut the railway in two. Now, of course, this has had a detrimental effect to our operations. Practically all our services have been halted. Since then, we've scrambled to reroute what we could, transferred goods by road, delayed services, done everything in our power to keep things moving. But the truth is, it hasn't been enough. The timing couldn't be worse. With the war on, demand is higher than ever, but so are the costs. Materials, labor, emergency repairs, it all adds up. And with the main line severed, we're bleeding money by the hour. Also, keep in mind, we're missing a lot of manpower at the moment, since a lot of our workmen have been sent to the front lines. So, attempting a reconstruction of the tunnel at the moment is almost an unfeasible venture. We've gone through the books, checked every figure twice, and after a long, painful deliberation, we've decided that as of tomorrow, the Sodor and Mainland Railway will cease operations. Not permanently, but for now, we must go into full suspension. The network will shut down. No trains, no goods, no services, until further notice. I don't make this decision lightly. None of us do. But with no revenue, a still substantial amount of debt, and now the line split in two, continuing would destroy what little foundation we have left. Better to pause, protect what remains, and rebuild when the time is right. I hope none of you feel guilty in any way. None of you should. If one should, it should be me. You've all served this railway with strength, pride and heart, and I'm very proud to have worked with you lot. I know this isn't the ending any of us hoped for, nor the ending we wanted, but we have to be realistic. Things simply can't continue like this.
So, that's it then?
Pretty much. This is the best I could do given the situation. It's the only way the railway can really survive. Survive by stopping? That doesn't sound like survival to me. I understand how it sounds, Malcolm. But if we keep running at half strength, with double the demand and no main line, we'll break ourselves trying to keep up. And then there won't be any railway left to save.
What happens to us? Are we going to be sent away?
I don't want to phrase it like that. Like I said, we still have a lot of debt owed. And the best thing we can do right now is to sell off assets to help raise a bit of money towards that. Now I don't want to do this, but at this point I don't really have a choice. The intent is that you lot are going to be sold off to other railways. Sold? So we're just assets now? Numbers on a page? No, you are not. And you never will be. Never in my books. You're more than that. All of you. You've given everything. And I swear to you, I will only agree to sales if I'm certain that you'll be treated properly. I won't let you end up in some scrapyard siding halfway across the country. That's not a promise you can keep. Not once we're out of your hands. Maybe not. But I will try. And right now, trying is all I can. So that's it. 56 years of service. Only to fall by the hands of bad luck and bad management.
That gosh darn Remis had to ruin everything. Now when we're finally starting to make a comeback, we get wiped from the map.
This is not what I wanted. None of this is. But the line is broken. The war is draining everything. And if we don't do something now, the entire railway, everything that's left, will be lost forever. If we hold on too tightly, we risk losing it all. This way, maybe something survives.
What happens to those who aren't sold?
If any engine isn't sold, they'll be put in storage. Carefully and safely. Open storage, so you don't feel isolated, but still stored, until there's a future again.
And if there's not?
There will be. I know. Right, that's all I have to say for now. Thank you. Each and every one of you. For everything. So, that was that. That was that. The railway was now, more or less, closed. And what followed was a rather large process of selling off the railway's rolling stock. Mostly the engines, since that's where they could get the most money. And all engines were eventually sold. Well, all except for me, Neil, and Matthew.
Nobody wanted you.
I mean, would you want a 50-year-old engine who was of a totally obsolete design?
I guess not.
Exactly. So, after a lot of trying, they eventually gave up, and we came under ownership of the Sodor government as part of the war effort. So, I guess one could say that all engines got new owners. No one was ever stored away.
That's something at least. But why would they want you if they didn't have any use for you?
Well, that's the thing. There was a use for us now. You see, the Duke was now also finally getting his way. For context, the railway had received minimal state support during the past 4 years. This was due to the then sitting parliament, who didn't want to give any more money to the railway since it seemed they would just waste it. Of course, this wasn't the case by then with Julian now in charge, but they didn't care. David II had actively tried to secure more funding to the railway, but without luck. He was constantly outvoted and over time became more irritated. The rest of the island also thought the parliament didn't do a good job, not just regarding the railway. As a result, after the 1914 parliamentary election, a totally new set of members were elected who were much more willing to allocate more funding to the railway. However, by this point, it was too late to save the Sodor Mainland Railway. So instead, a new project was initiated. The new idea was to finally give every major settlement on the island a rail connection. Remember, much of the western part of the island by this point was still missing that. The plan was they were to extend the mainline beyond Kildane all the way to Tidmouth. So, with monetary help from the British government, due to its strategic potential, the project was initiated. Now of course, a person was needed to lead the project. So, the Duke approached the most obvious choice.
Morning, Julian. Thank you for stopping by. No worries, Your Grace. So, I hear you have a proposal for me. Indeed. As you may know, we've recently initiated the Sodor Railway Future Project, with the goal of giving any major settlement on the island a railway connection. So that means extending past Kildane all the way to Tidmouth. Now of course, we need someone to lead this endeavor, and that's why I brought you here today. We want to present the opportunity to you, Julian. You seem like the obvious choice. Obvious choice. How flattering. Well, you've done more than enough to earn that distinction. So, what do you say? Well, I appreciate the offer, Your Grace. It means a lot that you still believe in me. But, sticking to my ethics, I must decline the offer, Your Grace. Decline? I don't think I should get another chance so easily. I've had my chance at keeping this railway going for the better part of 30 years now. I had my shot, and I've done my very best. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like I did enough. It had to be 20 years before I finally got into the position of power that the railway needed. 20 years! Imagine how much I could have done in those 20 years if I was controller. But the fact that that board kept the power for so long means I didn't do a good enough job. I would like to object towards the obvious choice distinction, because at the end of the day, the railway still closed during my tenure. I know there was a lot of other factors at play, but the point still stands. I don't think I should continue. Well, that was slightly unexpected. I'm sorry to hear that you feel guilty for the closure. Now, as much as I may not necessarily agree with your view, given the other factors at play, I respect your decision. If you don't want to, then you shan't. We just have to find another candidate, wherever one does that. Thank you, Your Grace. I am very grateful for your understanding. And I'm also very grateful for the few years we've worked together. It's been a pleasure. The pleasure's all mine, Julian. But I suppose I can help you with one more thing. What's that? I might just know the person you should put in charge of this project. Who?
And, well, I imagine you can guess who he suggested.
Would it be Topham?
It would indeed. The two had met a few years back when Julian visited London and North Western Railway headquarters. And Julian was impressed by Topham's ambitions. And so was the Duke. It wouldn't be too long before Topham was put in charge of the project. And the rest, as they say, is history. There you go. That's all we have for you tonight.
Why?
Why what?
Why did you keep all of this hidden for so long?
Well, that reason goes back to Neil's famous saying, if one constantly worries about something going wrong, it will go wrong. We didn't want to pass that worry and fear on to you. We didn't want you to feel the same as we did during the end of the railway's tenure. We didn't want the North Western Railway to be a continuation of the Sodor and Mainland Railway. We wanted it to be a fresh start for the island. So, until we were absolutely sure that the railway was in a stable and safe state, we would keep it hidden. Only now do we actually feel ready to open up about it, since the railway has become something the Sodor and Mainland Railway could have only dreamt of. Only now are you free of economic troubles, severe engine shortages, and the looming, unsettling presence of the LMS. All the major troubles and concerns you've had in the past. Therefore, only now are you ready to receive this in full detail.
Wow, very poetic, and understandable, I guess.
We might have dragged it a little longer than necessary, but what's happened has happened, and now it's all out out for all to learn.
Indeed. But I have to compliment you on the cover-up story you made. Very detailed and believable. Kept us from questioning for so long. Made us hate what you hated. The Wellsworth and Sodor Railway, for instance. By the way, I should ask, since I once worked there, how much of your downfall was to blame on them, since you made it out to be a lot?
Well, in all honesty, it was very minimal. Wouldn't say they were completely blameless. After all, we were getting outcompeted by Brendan. But you have to remember, the rivalry between those two boys dated back way further than the railways. So in the end, one shouldn't really blame them for anything.
I see. Well, I think I speak for all of us and soon the rest of the island. Thank you for telling us everything. I hope this can go a long way in clearing up any confusion. We'll just have to wait and see.
Have you heard the Sodor and Mainland Railway story?
What do you mean?
They recently told us what really happened back in the day. And let me tell you, it's a lot different from what they've been telling me.
Oh, that? Yeah, I knew it before they even told it.
Wait, what? You did?
Yeah?
How?
Because we were neighbors. Like, the Furnace Railway was literally right across the rolling bridge. They were connected, you know. I got insider knowledge almost daily from the engines who ran to Barrow.
Yeah, of course you would've.
Huh, wonder why no one didn't realize that. I'm surprised too. Seemed pretty obvious.
True, but in that case, why didn't you say anything?
Well, first of all, I should never be the one to tell it. I don't know the details of a lot of the earlier years, mostly just the later ones. Second, cause Neil, Clive and Matthew told me to.
I see. Well, what do you think of it?
I think the same as everyone else. Wrong choices were made, and the end is very tragic. I can't really add much more to it.
Makes sense.
All the same, it really shows why competent management is needed. There was still so much for the railway to gain, but it was never realized, being shelved in favor of glory, prestige, and wealth. All of which never ended up happening.
Thank God the Northwestern Railway hasn't had that. It would really break the island.
Absolutely. And I feel bad for all the engines who experienced Remis and his horrible management skills. I hope they all ended up having successful careers after their tenure there.
Hopefully so. I wonder if they're still around. Neil, Clive and Matthew doesn't really seem to know whether or not anyone is.
For the sake of their well-being, I hope at least one of them are. Would be a real shame if none were left. Good morning, you three.
Good morning, sir. What brings you down here?
Well, it's because there's something I want you to do.
What would that be?
I want you all to head to Crovan's Gate.
All three?
All three.
Are we to bring any train or what?
No. Light engine all the way.
Okay. What are we going to do at Crovan's Gate?
There's something waiting for you, so you best get on your way now.
I wonder what he's talking about. Search me. Could be anything. I guess we just have to figure it out.